Here at 7 o'clock.
I will call the September 18th Irmo Town Council meeting to order, and I will recognize Councilman Mark Pouliot to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God, we thank you for the opportunity to serve this community this day. We ask for your wisdom, your guidance, clarity of thought, focus, and the strength to do your will. May our actions be just and honorable in your sight, and help to reflect your heart and service to our town. In the precious name of Jesus and for the sake of his reputation, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Next thing on the agenda is the reading of the minutes for August 21st. Is there a motion for approval as written?
I make a motion.
And second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor then of the minutes being approved as written, do so with show of hand. Next is the administrative briefing. Mr. Brown, anything you need to add?
No, sir, not at this time.
And any questions of Mr. Brown on the briefing?
Has anybody called you about mosquitoes or West Nile virus, Bob?
Sir?
Has anybody called you about mosquitoes or West Nile virus? Anything?
No, sir, haven't got any calls. Nothing from DHIC.
I know the county has a program that spray for those things, and I just talked to Whit about it. We don't have such a program within the town itself. Do you think we need one, or?
I don't know. I'll follow up with DHIC and see what their concerns are, and if we can do anything about it. I'm sure we can spray, but I don't know what the process is. I'll ask Mr. Klein later as far as mosquito spraying goes.
No, I know he told me that the county handles that, but I'm saying, do we need to be proactive and do it ourselves as a town?
That would be a council decision that would have to go on to the agenda to vote on, whether or not council wanted to do that. But the counties do it right now, so it would be duplicating a county service.
Would you look it up and let me know, and we can put it on the agenda?
I'll ask. I'll find out if there's a cost involved or whether they'll just do it for us.
Thank you.
There have been 2 or 3 deaths in South Carolina this year, which was shocking when I read it. I just had no idea.
I've gotten a couple of calls from elderly folks in our neighborhood saying that, is there a program for spraying? They're concerned about it. Especially they got the West Nile virus they found in Columbia, so.
Yeah.
Any questions of Mr. Brown about the briefing? Seeing none. Next is the code enforcement. And
good evening. We had a big event that occurred with the hurricane. We were lucky, nothing happened. We had no road closures. No one, I don't even lost, somebody said they lost power for like 30 minutes, but we had a really good, that really was a great thing, and I don't know who to pray to on that one, but it was a good thing that nothing bad happened. We did hire an officer, so that added one more to our staff on Monday. Code enforcement update for August. The unsightly violations were 86, conditions for collection 10, business checks 18, signs removed 27, animal complaints 2, miscellaneous complaints were 9. The illicit discharge 1, and the newest sewage ordinance 0. Tickets issued were 8 total, 1 for illicit discharge, 1 for unsightly, unsanitary unsightly conditions, 1 running at large, 1 stormwater management, 2 front yard parking, 1 business license for peddling. And on the front yard parking, 148 residents have been issued abatement notices. 2 have been ticketed for not complying within the grace period. Of the 526 that we educated for that 1 year, we wrote 16 abatement notices out of the 526. So And Mr. Brown has a list of 63 properties that have been approved for pads.
Any questions?
Vi, would you put the first page back up, please? Okay. Thank you.
And go back to that last one. Yeah.
The front yard parking?
Yeah, so 148 abatement notices issued, but only 2 tickets to date, I guess. or
Yeah,
whenever
I
the
mean,
report
code
was done last
enforcement,
week.
we have a 90, I've told y'all that we've had 98, 99% compliance with people in the community. I mean, they do, you know, it's a job that we do, and, you know, they do what they need to do as well. So,
And
I mean,
out of the 526
yeah, 526 that we have, that's the ones that we had to list.
for the whole 6-month education period.
Yeah, I think the education period was almost a year, wasn't it? Or was it 6 months?
Yes, I think it was about 6
It
months.
was a long time. I
Yeah.
know that. But yeah, out of that whole list is done. So only
So out of those,
and
only
16 got abatement notices.
So 510 either complied, fixed a pad, parked in the driveway, parked
Or
on the
never
road,
parked again.
or just weren't
whatever. Yeah, yep,
in the yard when you went by or something. So
that's correct. That's where we're
sounds
at.
good. Any questions?
I find it hard to believe that out of 526 people, we had nobody that was rental properties were ticketed.
No, this ordinance has nothing to do with the front yard or the rental property.
Sure it does. If it was a rental property and they were
Then
parking in the yard, they get a ticket automatically, right?
Correct.
So is that not included in this number?
No,
Okay, so how many rental properties have you ticketed for front yard parking?
I do not know that question. I can find out for you.
Okay.
But I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't want to talk for code enforcement, but I think they give them like a 24, like, hey, you need to move that car immediately.
Nope. You're supposed to give them a ticket right
like
away.
I said, I don't want to talk for them.
Right.
And I don't know how they, you know, whatever they're doing is working. I'll give you that. I'll just say that.
Okay, I want to know next time we come up here, how many rental properties,
Get ticket?
right,
How many tickets were issued for the year
for this period or whatever you got? Yeah.
okay, I'll find
Oh,
out.
you got a month, right? You got a month.
I mean,
This is a month report, right?
yeah, this is the month of August report.
Okay, so for the month of September, I don't know how many tickets you wrote for rental property.
Okay, we can find out. Anything else? Anybody?
Thank you.
Okay.
Sounds good. And let's see. Next is amendments to the agenda. Any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none. Consideration of communications. Any considerations of communications?
There's a couple of people that sent me emails. They wanted me to read stuff into the thing, and I gave it to folks out here to read. They wanted to, I guess they want to read it into the minutes, but yeah. I gave it to the people out there to read it because I don't want to come off the bench to read it.
Just want me to read it, or? Okay, it says, "Good evening, Mayor, council members, and Irmo citizens.
I can't hear you, ma'am. I'm sorry.
I apologize for my absence. She's not here. I apologize for my absence, but I would still like my statement as a matter of record. My family and I moved to Irmo in 2004. My children were 6 and 7. My husband was going to work at Fort Jackson, and I was working off Leesburg Road. Our realtor was initially looking in areas closer to those locations. However, I told her I was not worried about the distance to work, but I wanted a neighborhood with a good school district, low crime, close to shopping and activities, and no HOA. At no time did I tell her I wanted an area where people did not park on their lawns, where their grass was no higher than 3 inches, where campers, mobile homes, boats, etc. could not park in their driveways or yards, or any other such nonsense. I wanted a neighborhood where neighbors were neighborly and people pretty much helped each other out, but were not necessarily nosy neighbors. People were not complying with grass, yard parking, or anything. Irma was a good place to live. Now people are leaving, and in my opinion, it is because of recent moves by the mayor and the council. The town no longer has a say. It seems these members, to me, there are members of the council who are forgetting they were elected by the people, for the people, and before it said, yes, I'm sure there are those who are in support of those members, yet they are always the silent majority. Crime is rising. It seems code enforcement is more important than patrolling the areas, stopping the break-ins and trailer thefts, or maybe it will just be left to Richland County to take care of it. Regardless, it seems the value of people's lives is worth less in the eyes of the council than the value of a piece of property. I don't feel safe in this town. I don't like it to be out after dark. I used to like to take evening walks or sit outside after dark, but not anymore. But what is my safety worth as long as the grass is cut and the yards have no vehicle in it? I feel the people are like the Who in Dr. Seuss's Horton Hears a Who. Certain members of council feel we are so small and insignificant we can be blocked out. Our voices do not need to be heard. We are made to look like we are holding vendettas on the news. We are made to look like we have no knowledge what the people of Irmo want. We are made to look like a bunch of whiny children not getting our way, when in truth we are people who want to be heard. So mayor and council, to you I say, we may be like Who, be small, but to the people of Irmo I quote Dr. Seuss, don't give up. I believe in you all. A person's no matter how no matter how small. Stand up, people of Irmo, and make some noise. Every voice must be heard. Every person must let out their yap. Let council know Irmo is united. And it's from Diane Danino. She lives in New Friars Gate. Pretty much it.
Any other consideration of communications? I wanted to mention, I have met yesterday with Experience Columbia, which is a DMO, Designated Marketing Organization, who was on our agenda tonight as far as with the tax accommodations money. And they are here. I don't know, some of y'all may not be familiar with them, but I invited them to come to the meeting tonight so that they could speak and introduce themselves and tell us who they are and a little bit about their organization. And I think I saw them, right over there. So Bill Ellen and Jason Altman with Experience Columbia, which is also called the Columbia Visitors Bureau, and you can explain more of that, and the Midlands Authority for Tourism and all that.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. We appreciate the invitation to appear before you tonight to give you an overview of who we are and what we do. As Mayor pointed out, we are now branded as Experience Columbia. Formerly, we were the Midlands Authority for Convention, Sports, and Tourism, and we're one of the two destination marketing organizations in the area that use accommodations tax to market the entire region. We have a cooperative advertising program that gives you an outline of examples or choices that you can use your money to advertise in specific markets or specific media, and that money is used to used for billboards or magazine ads. It allows the co-op allows someone to get a lot more bang for your advertising dollar because we're purchasing a lot of advertising. A lot of smaller organizations, some municipalities don't have the budget to advertise in some of those medians, and this allows you to advertise in some areas that you might not be able to. As state law mandates, we have to spend the advertising outside of 50 miles, but we do target Augusta and Charlotte and other areas to try to attract meetings, conventions, tourist, sporting events that would come to our area. A couple of examples, we've put some soccer tournaments and a national Quidditch tournament in Saluda Shoals Park, which I know directed some business into the Irmo area, and looking forward to continuing that. But appreciate the opportunity to give you an overview of what we do, and if you have any Jason has some handouts of the cooperative marketing plan that we can give out. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer.
And I think you mentioned you work with town of Lexington as well, and Casey, and
we do the town of Lexington and Casey as well as West Columbia participate in our cooperative advertising. They've done some billboards, they've done some ad placements, and it seems to have worked very well.
If I may I ask what magazines you're advertising in?
We're advertising in a number. Southern Living is a popular magazine that we advertise in their Southeast regional issue. We advertise in a number of tourism-related publications, meeting magazines, and those type magazines.
Can you name more?
Gardening Gun for another, but meetings today we do that.
We also do association-based magazines, Professional Convention Management Association, Meeting Professionals International. We also do ASAE, which is Association Society of Association Executives. We also work with the AJC in Atlanta, the newspaper in Atlanta, AJC, and then we do a lot of the smaller newspapers in like the Charleston market, Greenville, Asheville, which would be similar to our free times. So those are a little bit more cost effective because they're not as pricey as doing like the Southern Living, for instance. But they're targeted into those specific markets like Charleston, Augusta, Greenville, Asheville. And then we do the billboards in about 8 different locations. The same locations with the newspapers I just mentioned, as well as Charlotte.
Thank you.
And the packet I handed out also details the billboard locations, the dailies, the weeklies that we work with, which is like our free times, as well as the magazines that we also work with.
Thank you.
Do you get good feedback or results from Southern Living?
We do. Southern Living is actually, it's a program that we started several years ago working with Southern Living, and it's grown for us each year. It's really been really vital for us because what they've done is where in the beginning it used to be a generic pitch of maybe an advertisement of Columbia. Now we've gone to more advertorial features where it's photos and articles written about the location. So it might highlight a chef, it might highlight a specific attraction, it might highlight just overall things to do. But it's been really good for us. And what we've done in the past is we've worked with Southern Living where they can even enter to receive information from us. So they email opt in to receive information from us, which gives us a database list to then work off of that we can continue to pump information on the region to them.
And we just recently had an invitation from the editor of Southern Magazine to come visit Birmingham, their office, and meet with their editor-in-chief, to better build that relationship, so possibly they send a travel writer here to write on the region and things like that. So it's been a real positive relationship.
That's the only magazine I read every month.
If I can ask just further, are you able to give a report as to where our dollars would be spent?
Well, with the co-op advertising, you can actually select where you want your dollars spent, whether you want it in billboards, whether you want it in ad placement. So you actually have an opportunity to select where you want it spent.
All right. Thank you.
And what we've done with with Casey and West Columbia is if there's a specific program. I know when we met with the mayor, we kind of had some discussions over like Orchestra, for instance. If say Charlotte was maybe a market that you really wanted to promote Orchestra in, then you could select say like the billboards that are in that market, promoting the dates and times for the Orchestra to the Charlotte residents.
All right.
Any more questions?
Bill, last time I saw you, you had black hair. Now, what happened?
I think that's called 3 teenagers and
Oh, okay.
and this job. No, it's all good. But
Good to see you again.
good seeing you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it very much.
Any other consideration of communications? Seeing none, next item is presentation by citizens for items on the agenda. Anyone who would like to address anything that's on the agenda, all we ask is you come to the podium and give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Gloria Jordan. I'm in the New Friars Gate neighborhood. How many have I got with me? Several of us. All residents of Irmo. We can give names and official addresses in a little bit. I would like to address a couple of things. First is a quote that I read in the state newspaper this morning concerning the yard parking ordinance and all of our discussion that we've been having. The quote says, "The controversy and intercouncil bickering is all politics," King said, "and has to do with Walker's run for mayor in 2019. I would like to put it on the record that our being here tonight and wanting to discuss the petition that we have going for the residents to submit to the South Carolina Elections Commission regarding the yard parking ordinance has nothing to do, was not prompted by anybody who is currently on council or who's even interested in running for council. This is the citizens who have initiated this. Another quote from an article that I came across in the Post and Courier. Mayor, I do appreciate and am disappointed that I could not attend your meeting that you organized for demystifying Islam. It was something that was interesting, and I had a prior commitment and could not attend, so I thank you for putting that together. The article referenced that event and quoted you as saying about a young man that had called you, said that he wasn't yelling and screaming and hollering and calling me a bigot. He was just a young man with a concern, and he voiced it very openly, very peacefully, and it made me think, maybe I need to rethink this. So we have come to you many times, peacefully, with our concerns. We have felt that we have not been heard. So we would like council to offer this same courtesy to us, that we are listened, that we are heard, and that you would consider what we say and rethink this. I would like to clarify our stance. If you did not see the letter that Brandy Clarkson and I submitted to the Irmo News about a week or so ago, our stance is that we do not want our neighbors to have cars parked on blocks, in disrepair, parked haphazardly throughout their yards. I think that we are in agreement with you all on that note. This deteriorates the visual appeal of our neighborhoods. What we do believe, and what we have been trying to communicate all along, is that we believe each household has a right to use their property as they deem necessary for the coming and going of their family. That may mean somebody needs to park in the yard. That may mean a multiple driver household with a 2 parking spot driveway who does not have the means to pay to put down additional parking should be able to park where they need to for the coming and going of their household. This may include parking adjacent to driveways or just off the curb on the edge of the yard, because many of our streets are too narrow and not safe with the curves, the blind curves, the cul-de-sacs, and just the alignment of our driveways. We should not be legally required to install anything on our properties for parking. Installation should be a voluntary choice. We believe that the targeted areas are non-HOA neighborhoods, primarily Friars Gate. Neighborhoods with homeowners associations have parking regulations that their residents voluntarily comply with, and they often seek these neighborhoods due to those regulations. The non-HOA neighborhoods are often sought out to allow more freedom in what residents can do with their property. At the time of a recent article in the state paper, 101 abatement notices had been issued at the time of that publication. All of them in or near the Friars Gate neighborhood. So I'm very interested in the number that the chief reported, the 526 educated about the parking ordinance. What neighborhoods were those in? That's something I would like to find out. Because if the majority of them are also, like these first 100, in Friars Gate, that further drives the point that this is a targeted ordinance. We believe that this is discrimination against certain demographics in Irmo. In order to comply with the new ordinance, residents must purchase and put down these approved materials to create a parking pad. If they don't comply, they're fined $1,087.50, and if they don't pay the fine and or don't put down the parking pad, they may also face jail time and have a criminal offense on their record. Friars Gate is a non-HOA neighborhood made up of affordable homes occupied by many hardworking middle-class households, fixed-income retirees, veterans, single parents, and our underpaid and overworked police officers, and many of those doing their best to try and get ahead. These are the heroes of Irmo that are doing their best, trying to move forward, trying to give themselves and their families and their children a better life, better opportunity than they may have had growing up. We wonder how this ordinance affecting only non-HOA neighborhoods isn't targeting this specific group of people, because that is definitely what it looks like. Now, up to this point, we have talked with all of you at meetings, as well as many of us and others who could not be here tonight have talked with some of you individually. We have expressed our concerns. We have expressed, sorry, I lost my place. We've met with many of you one-on-one and have expressed our concerns and have feel like those have been ignored. There were multiple promises of working towards compromise once the ordinance passed, but that it had to be passed first. So now it's been passed, and we would like to see where these compromises are coming. Where are they? We've yet to see them offered. We believe after all of that there's no other recourse except to file a formal petition. And I'd like to make note that this is not like the chicken petition. This is formal petition through the South Carolina Election Commission. We believe that this parking ordinance has violated our right to peaceful enjoyment of our property. Following the South Carolina Election Commission's guidelines, we are requesting signatures of registered voters within Irmo town limits who agree that this ordinance is an overreach of government into citizens' private lives. So far, considering that we had a hurricane threaten to come through, we had 6 days where we obtained just over 100 signatures with only about 4 hours, three hours each day set up to have anybody come sign. As of this afternoon, we have exactly 149 signatures of registered voters in the town of Irmo. All of these will be submitted to the South Carolina Election Commission. They will verify and guide us in how to proceed from there. We will continue to accept signatures as the word is getting out and more people are approaching us asking, where do I sign? I also want you to take note and remember that these registered voters, these 150 nearly, are your constituents. We have voices too. We had many unregistered people come out wanting to sign, and we told them, I'm sorry, you can't. You're not a registered voter here. We have to follow these guidelines. Well, they decide they're going to go ahead and register to vote. So now there's somebody who's going to be voting in the next election. And they are now a registered voter because they believe that this yard parking ordinance is overreach. I'd also like to mention, Mayor, that the several days that you drove by, you could see that people turned out. We were disappointed that you didn't stop to speak with any of us who were out there, to just have that polite conversation about what's going on. There were members of law enforcement that stopped by to talk with us, and there were many citizens that stopped not only to sign, but also to find out if they could or what was going on. So this 150 nearly, this is just who's come out so far. We have received numerous messages from people who are not in favor of this ordinance. They want to see it gone, but they are afraid to sign for fear of retaliation. It's a shame that it's come to that attitude and that opinion of our town. Rumor has it that many of our town officers, if not in agreement, are afraid for their jobs if they were to sign. That shouldn't be either. comments we received from residents who came out to talk with us. They said, we don't want disrepair or junk cars on blocks, but this is overreach. You've crossed a line. It's been mentioned that a lot of older residents seem to be in favor for this because the neighborhoods do look quite different from when they bought their home 30, 40 years ago. But they said, many of them who came said they believe that this ordinance was overkill on government involvement in private citizens' lives. Multiple residents said they chose Friars Gate because they did not have an HOA with parking regulations. And then there was a few that said their tickets were not reduced as they were led to believe, as we've all been led to believe. Their tickets were not reduced the way we were led to believe, and they still had to pay a $500 fine. Everybody who's come by said they want to see a full repeal. We want to see a full repeal. We want to give you an opportunity to act on your own accord rather than us continue to accept signatures from your voting constituents. Because at that point, we do have recourse through South Carolina Election Commission to put a vote up for either full repeal or for a referendum vote for the residents to decide. Like I said, this is more formal than the clipboard with the chicken petition that got passed around. We're serious about our belief that this is overreach. Have I left out anything we discussed? There are more people behind me than I realized. Okay. So again, I hope that you listen to our words. I hope that you consider what we have said. And as I stated in my letter, and again just a few moments ago, we don't want our neighbors to have parked cars on blocks in disrepair or just haphazardly, but we do believe each household has a right to use their property as they deem necessary for the coming and going of their family. And those of us who live in Friars Gate neighborhoods or others like it without an HOA, we believe that this is very gross overreach on the part of local government to tell us how to use our property and how to spend our money because somebody thinks it doesn't look pretty. I know curb appeal is important, but that's not the only thing that's important here. People's lives are just as important as how pretty their house looks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kevin Miller. I live at 105 Wells Garden Court in New Friars Gate. I've lived here in Irmo in the community since 2006. Me and my wife and my family moved down here from North Carolina, and we rented the house that we live in until December this past year. In December this past year, we bought the house. Having known that this ordinance would have been passed, I would have thought I'd had second thoughts about buying in the Friars Gate community because the taxes, when they come due on the house, on the property, I pay them. You don't. The payment that goes to the mortgage company, I pay that. You don't. You should not be able to tell me that I cannot park my car in the gravel that's already established beside my driveway without getting a $1,000 ticket. There's been gravel. I've got a single lane concrete driveway. Beside of it, I've got a single lane gravel driveway. My stepson lives with me. He owns 2 cars. Me and my wife own a car apiece. That makes 4 vehicles. For the past, since 2006, we have parked, not in the grass. 2 cars been on the gravel, 2 cars been on the concrete driveway. No problems. My neighbor's next door property has been reported to the Irmo police numerous times. It looks like a jungle in the backyard. Marlon Perkins would have a field day. It has been told to us numerous times There's nothing we can do on account of the backyard. It's in the backyard. But when I come home from work, I have a notice taped to my door saying that I can no longer park my cars on the gravel because there is grass that has grown up through the gravel. That's ludicrous. And this is something that is unfair. This is something that is, as the first letter was read, it spoke about spending more time on code enforcement than you do the car break-ins. I had a code enforcement officer leave a note on my front door. 2 nights after that, I had somebody try to break into my house. Where was the law? Where was the Irmo police when the guy was trying to break into the house? I don't know, but I can tell you where the code enforcement was at. We need to put priorities where priorities is at. I believe in making Irmo a beautiful place. I like where I live. I love my neighbors. But I don't being like told where I can park my own car in my own yard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cindy Miller, and yes, I am against this parking petition because we citizens, we have a hard time making ends meet from paycheck to paycheck, to pay our taxes, to pay for a place to stay, without, if there's part of your tire on the grass, you're going to get a ticket for $1,000. Or if you park on the street and you want to get off the road a little bit so nobody won't hit your car and part of your tire is on the grass, here comes a code enforcement officer giving you a ticket. Want $1,000, who can pay that? We can barely pay our house payment and put groceries on our table. Then have to be worried for our own safety to get off the road a little bit, or have to come home and worry, oh my goodness, part of my tire was on the grass. Now I got to worry about a $1,000 ticket. It's ridiculous. They're crossing the line, making mountains out of molehills. Give them a little bit of power to go crazy, start writing tickets for everything. Just stripping our rights away, little at a time. It's not fair. While y'all sit there, yeah, I'm all for not having vehicles parked up on blocks, but this thing's getting out of hand. It's getting ridiculous at the amount of tickets that have been wrote for little crazy stuff. So it needs to be amended, done away with, or something.
My name is Wade Deloach. I live at 156 Finsbury Road. I can appreciate what council's trying to do, clean up the neighborhoods. You don't want people parking like a demolition derby in your front yard. But having said that, it seems like we could be a little bit lenient, letting people park beside the driveway or beside the road, especially when you got guests, or if you got a family that's done grown large, where you got teenagers that are going to school now and starting to drive cars. But it seems like this ordinance is aimed more at houses where they don't have enough parking to start with, and usually that's rental property. And rental property is usually lower income. And it's going to affect them more than anybody else because, just like the lady was up here just now, she's living in fear. And it's sad to be in a town where I've got neighbors that live in fear of having a tire parked on grass and worried about getting a $1,000 ticket. But tonight we're talking about parking. These ordinances go way further than that, and y'all know it. How many buildings you can have in your yard. You don't consider how big the yard is, how tall your grass is. Got to have numbers on your house, which that's fine. I understand, that's good. Well, let's talk about doing education instead of fining people for it. We can do a little bit of education and maybe reward people for having a clean yard, for having an outstanding yard and figuring out ways to make the neighborhood better instead of penalizing them with tickets. parking adjacent to the driveway or adjacent to the road where it's, where it can be done safely without making a nuisance of other neighbors or messing up the yards. I don't see nothing wrong with it. I just wish y'all at least consider that. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm John Sutherland. My wife and I moved to Irmo roughly 15 years ago. And we came here for one reason, because there was no regime fee. We had looked in all type of neighborhoods, and various neighborhoods had regime fees. We were told how many cars could be in your yard, where you could park on the street, what day the garbage went out. And we chose Irmo because it was home, and they treated you like you were home. Nobody gave you any orders. And now, lately, and my thing is, with the regime fee, this is what this council is coming up with, because it happens today with parking. What will it be next year and the year after that? And God forbid, if you got the authority, we are doomed. It's that simple. I'm sorry I had to come. This is the first meeting I've ever been to, and I'm hoping it doesn't be the last. But my wife and I have really enjoyed the neighborhood, and there are a lot of things you could look at, like the young man said, crime. Look at the people's yards. Look at the way they keep in their homes. These are things that could be improved, but to make a senior citizen repave their driveway to satisfy 8 to 10 people on the council, I really don't see the logic in it. Have a good evening. Thank you.
My name is Rick Friend. I live at 400 Doncaster Drive. I guess I don't see all this stuff either. I'm either blind or I don't get out of my recliner. Code enforcement, I applaud you. I applaud the police department. I've lived there 28 years and never had a code and, ticket or whatever, because I guess I'm doing what I'm supposed to do as a neighbor and a fellow human being. The police department, anytime there's ever been an issue, has been on the spot and there. They helped save my life twice going out of there in an ambulance, and I applaud you for that. But what I don't understand is as diverse as that Friars Gate area is, and I love it. I guess I'm the luckiest person over there, because my neighbors, we get along. There's an issue, somebody needs help. The neighbor to my left has cancer. I cut her grass. I can't weed eat my yard, so my other neighbor comes over and takes care of that for me. And I swap off by taking care of his dogs when he's at work. What is all the arguing and the bickering about? You have set this up not to be some kind of hillbilly or whatever you want to use looking development. And I thank God that I lived there. I put $150,000 in that house in the last 10 years. I'm going to die in that house. I know I never get the money out of it, but I'm going out there 10 toes up. I don't care. The thing is, if there's issues that you want to bring up to the council, my way of doing business, of working 40 years in the banking business, if you had a problem, sit down and work out a solution. If somebody is a little out of variance, the police notify you and let you know that. Accept it. If you're doing something wrong, just like all your life in school and everything else. If you're doing something wrong, you get caught, what are you getting mad about? I mean, I don't get it. That's what I don't get. If you sit there and having a party and have 50 cars in your yard, you got a problem. I'm sorry, but I just don't agree with the fact that you can have a boat motorhome, cars in your yard, boats backed up. Even I don't agree with in the backyard looking like Sanford and Sons junkyard. You know, I don't agree to that. But it's not about the backyard. It's about the front yard, aesthetically. Friars Gate is coming back. There's a lot of us that's put a lot of money in our houses, our yards, spend thousands of dollars a year in our yards to make them look good and everything else. And when you see your neighbor at a rental property across the street with 15 cars, I'm exaggerating, 5 cars, parked every which way in the yard, you know, what happened to love thy neighbor? Take care of your neighbor. You know, work with them. If they're sick, take care of them. Just like, you know, the elderly. Hell, I'm 65 years old. You know, I've got more health problems than probably all of you in this room. But the thing is, I enjoy living in there. These people work hard to give us a good place to live. Instead of going against them, hell, let's help them. Give them suggestions. I didn't hear many suggestions tonight except for we want it repealed. Well, if there was 200 people on that petition, why is there only 40 people in the room? They're working this late at night and they couldn't get a babysitter. Come on. That's ridiculous. If that was that important to them, they'd be here.
Let's.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get into all that.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me be heard, and I enjoyed living in Friars Gate, and I applaud you all for doing your job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. The Lord said, love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. He also said, love thy neighbor as thyself. I try to adhere to that. I am in favor of the law that you have in place. And I'll tell you why. I welcome all the neighbors that come into my neighborhood. I have just put a $55,000 addition onto my home in Old Friars Gate because I love it there. I've lived here 40 years, raised 5 children in there. And sure, at times got tough at times, but made ends meet. You know, it's always funny how the police get blamed for everything, you know. And I can say that because I was one for 40 years, okay? I love my neighbors. I try to get to know them. But you have some neighbors that don't want to interact with you. They move in, they don't want to interact. And then their grass is growing, it looks like a wheat field. So you go over and you ask them, hey, can you cut your grass? And they stare at you. I said, I'm getting mice in my yard. I'm getting snakes in my yard. Can you please cut your grass? They don't do it. So I have to call the code enforcement. And I know all these guys. I trained half of them. I know they're good men, okay? They would rather be out there doing what they're supposed to be doing than code enforcement. The problem is when they had the old code enforcement, the people didn't give them any respect. So they had to bring in a police officer who should demand respect when he goes to that house. And I think that's why it's set up the way it is, and I think it's good. I'm sorry that these people think that we're infringing on their rights. Where does it say that, you know, there's laws, there's rules, you have to abide by them, okay? This thing about the grass being 3 inches or over, I have St. Augustine grass. I have to keep it at 3.5 inches or it's going to die. I've never gotten a ticket. A lot of people in my neighborhood don't even know I was a police officer, okay? But I admit I have called the code enforcement several times. You know, on weekends when people have people over to their house, 6 or 7 cars pull up, and they all pull up on the front lawn, they pop the hoods up, and they're changing the oil. That looks really good. I've asked them not to do it. They continue to do it. Well, luckily that neighbor moved out. But I mean, it's things like that. People have patience, but it comes to a point where, you know, you have to do something about it. And I've talked to these people. I've tried to do it the right way. All the neighbors in my cul-de-sac have tried to do that. But some people don't want to obey the rules. okay? I don't think has nothing else to do but except that. That's what it is. And so I appreciate the work the Irmo police do. I appreciate y'all. I like the law. Please don't repeal it.
Hi, my name's Jessica Canady, and I'm a homeowner in New Friarsgate. This is my very first town meeting, and I chose to come up here because I feel very strongly about my town, my fellow neighbors, and government. I have terrible stage fright. So for me to be standing up here is like, the things that have been said, I think, have been very well spoken, and I don't know any of you. I've never met any of you. And I'm a real estate agent, Jessica Canady, J. King Real Estate. And I sold my very first house because of this parking ordinance. They left after living here for 16 years because they were forced to put in additional parking. They had 2 children, 4 drivers. And then after they put in the additional required pad, they were required to do more with boxing it in. I mean, I've heard that people are getting ticketed because it wasn't fully boxed in on all sides. I just don't understand what we're trying to do. I mean, I respect the elected officials that are here, my police officers, thank you for your service, and the retired police officers. I don't want to live in a neighborhood that has an HOA. But I also don't think that the government should have the right to tell me how to live. And the fines, my question is, where's this money going? I mean, $1,000, $500. I mean, if anything, it's full transparency. I did sign the petition for the citizens of Irmo. I don't think that the ordinance is appropriate for a town council to pass a law of this nature. And I hope that you guys can understand that we are trying to be heard in a civilized way that doesn't have recourse. That's besides the stage fright, you know, the scary part, because you guys have a bad reputation. And I've never met any of you. And I would love to meet every single one of you, shake your hand, give you my business card, and do business for the next 20 years. I mean, this is my town. This is where I'm from. I plan on living here, raising my daughter. And I only have 2 parking spots. So when she gets a car, I'm screwed. I have to put a $10,000 parking pad in or move. I mean, who's paying for that? Thank you for listening.
Brandy Clarkson, J. King Real Estate, too. So I just want to clarify, this isn't about being a good neighbor. I think most of us are good neighbors. I know everyone that stood with us is a good neighbor. It's about our rights. It's about the fact that y'all don't listen. Mayor, you don't even look at us. I don't know who this lady back here is. It's the first time I've ever seen her at a council meeting. You still aren't looking at me, but that's okay.
I'm making notes.
She specifically just told me, why don't you ask them to look at you when you talk? It's so disrespectful. I don't know where everybody's been. I mean, to say we didn't come up with ideas, we've been at every meeting since y'all started this. We have come up with ideas. We have been kind. We have been nasty. We have been called names. We have tried everything in the book. It's not about a boat. It's not about an RV. Nothing about my specific parking situation changed except I threw some mulched up leaves under the cars that sit exactly where they were before this law. So this isn't about that. Y'all don't get it. There's 149, Gloria?
It's 149 signatures right now. There will be enough. Y'all will not have an option. Why aren't they here? I have 5 messages right now on my phone in writing. It's not a make-believe phone call because people are scared of you. I had police officers come and say, we'd love to sign your petition, but we can't. He'll get rid of us. And no, we know it's not the police. We love the police. We have said it. I don't know how many languages we can say it in for y'all. It is not the police. It is y'all. Y'all are the problem. There are a few people in Friars Gate who are parking like a used car lot. You can talk to them. You don't have to do this to everyone else. I am a dang good neighbor. You can ask my handicapped neighbor, Miss Pat. You can ask my handicapped neighbor, Reggie. You can ask any neighbor on my street. They all came to sign the petition. Not one of them had a problem with the way I park my car. The only person that has a problem with it is you. This is about you. You are being selfish. If you don't like it, why did you buy a house in a non-HOA neighborhood? Y'all made that decision, same as we did. We did it because we didn't want an HOA. You don't get to come in there and decide to make one. I'm not yelling. I think I've only yelled one time, and that was when the mayor interrupted me, actually. I didn't call anybody a bigot. I do think there have been some exceptionally racist remarks made up here tonight by people who support the ordinance. That should tell you something right there. Sanford and Son, what else did they say? I mean, come on. These are the people that back you guys. Congratulations.
Good evening, George Glassmeyer, 100 Denbeck Road. I want to address a number of items on the agenda. Very briefly, parking, very briefly. Specifically, I want to address item 9D, which I believe is the second reading for the proposed amendment to amend the parking ordinance to make some allowances for handicapped people. I don't necessarily want to speak to the merits of that, but I would say this. I think one of the most important things the council does is enact legislation and ordinances. And when you enact an ordinance, it's imperative that it be done with precision and without ambiguity so that both the citizens understand what it is that they need to do to comply with it and that law enforcement understands clearly what they have to do to enforce it. And the existing proposed amendment doesn't pass muster in my eyes to do either of those. The last time when this was brought up at the previous meeting, terms were used such as plate and sticker, referring to vehicles that have some indicia of being awarded handicap status. Maybe I don't get out enough, but I've yet to see a sticker on a car to indicate that it's approved for handicap parking. I've seen license plates and I've seen a bunch of placards, but not stickers. So my suggestion is this. When council wants to make a proposed amendment or enact a new piece of legislation, that you refer to somebody who has the adequate education to do that. Moving on, I'd like to look at the item F under new business to increase the annual garbage fee $4 to continue to do recycling in this town. I think this should be a no-brainer. I don't think it should require any kind of debate. I'm not necessarily a big fan of increased taxes, but I'm more than willing to pay an additional $4 a year to continue recycling. Keep in mind that if you discontinue recycling, I understand from the various vendors over the years that Irmo, the citizens of Irmo, have a very high participation rate in recycling. And if you discontinue recycling, all those recycled materials are now going to go to the landfill rather than be recycled, and that's, in my view, environmentally irresponsible. I don't think many citizens are going to have a problem with paying $4 to continue to do recycling. Now, I understand that costs may go up again. We may need to revisit this again and may need to look at increasing the fees yet again. But I'm happy to pay the $4 fee to continue recycling. There are some trade-offs here, of course, because if you discontinue recycling, you don't have to pay the tipping fees for recycled goods, which are more than for the household goods. But by the same token, you'll have increased tipping fees for the household goods. But rather than play that shell game with the money, I think the bottom line is I don't think many citizens are going to be opposed to $4. This needs to be a no-brainer, no debate issue to pass it. Finally, or not finally, now I want to look at items H and I on the agenda, consideration to award accommodations taxes. I've spoken as to this issue a number of times in past years, and I voiced my opposition to awarding any money to Lake Murray Country. When they came to council, I think 2 years ago, when the director was here, I brought up on my phone the IRS 990 form that 501c3s have to submit every year, and they have to identify various employees that make large incomes. A few moments ago, I brought up the most recent one available for this organization, which is the 2015 Form 990 that indicates that the president at that time was making over $130,000 a year. I think any nonprofit, particularly the small size, relatively small size of that nonprofit that's paying its CEO that kind of money is not using their contributions wisely. And it's also my understanding that they're not able to provide a discrete accounting to this council as to where the money that you've given them in the past goes to and how it's spent, how that discrete money is spent, rather than just, well, it's all thrown into the same pot and here's our annual budget and here's what we spend for advertising and marketing, et cetera. But you can't get an accounting, as Mr. Pouliot asked the other organization here earlier, can you tell us where our money goes? And those gentlemen said, yeah, no problem. So I'm opposed to Lake Murray Country getting a dime. Do I have the floor, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I don't think so. I can't hear either. Okay. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask the audience to keep their comments low so that we can hear our comments to themselves, brother.
And
go ahead.
Finally, I want to address item J on the agenda, the approval to submit an application for a rural infrastructure grant. I've done a little bit of homework on this, and my information is that, first of all, before this grant can be submitted, a plan has to be developed in writing as to what the project would be. I understand, and I'd like to know what that is. And I think it's also important to understand that this is not a 100% grant. It's a 3-to-1 match. So if we get the $500,000 grant, the town's going to have to pay $125,000 of that $500,000. I'd like to know where that money's going to come from. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm Vicki Davis with Capital City Lake Murray Country, and I've been attending this meeting off and on for the past few years with Miriam Atry, our president and CEO, who has been with the company since 1981 and who has devoted her entire career to this area of Lake Murray, including Irmo, Columbia, Richland, Newberry, 4 counties of Lake Murray that she has personally brought much success. And if you want to talk about books, we are audited by the state. They are open at any time. You have public records. We do submit in writing every single thing we're doing for Town of Irmo, City of Columbia, you name it, it is documented. And the CVB gets paid a lot more money than what you just heard. So I think that this is really showing, and it's very disheartening what's happening in this town. So I think all of it needs to be re-examined, and we need to really act professional, do this in the right way and manner. And if you ever would like a meeting, we would love to take time and talk to you about what we're doing for these 4 counties, including Irmo.
Please, can we stop with the applause?
I'm Wade Deloach, 156 Finsbury Road. I'd like to talk a little bit about the grant. Apparently Mr. Glassmeyer doesn't know all the details. But what this grant does if you got repair work or new construction on storm drains, have it overseen by an engineer, get the cost of the project. The grant will cover 75% of whatever that project costs. The town only has to pay 25%, up to $500,000 coverage. It's not $500,000, then you pay 25% of that. That's wrong. That's not how it works. What it is, if you got $100,000 worth of repairs, the grant will pay $75,000. The town pays $25,000. That's how it works. Saves the town some money, but it only covers repairs or new construction of storm drains. And I brought this to Mr. Walker. I was in a class. We were talking about it. I thought it'd be something good for the town to save us some money. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none.
Mr. Mayor, I want to make sure that people understand that Mr. Glassmeyer is not a member of the Irmo Council, and he doesn't speak for the how we judge things and how we are making determinations on stuff up here. That's his input as a citizen, and that's all it is. His input as a citizen, just like anybody else can make up here. And I just want to make sure that we're aware of that and that the people know that that's what's happening. Thank you.
I hope that people recognize that these five sitting up here are the council members, but
yeah, well, I just want to make sure they know that.
Yeah, okay.
Somebody coming and questioning somebody's salary has nothing to do with anything that we are concerned with, but maybe that's a personal vendetta or something. I don't know.
Next item is unfinished. No, I mean, if you want to speak again, you can, but we're not going to have a debate. No.
Okay, good, because I don't think it's the appropriate forum for that.
Okay. Next item is unfinished business A, which is ordinance 1822. This has to do with the recovery collection cost of the delinquent debt that we are getting ready to implement, so to speak. Is there a motion for second reading?
So move.
And a second.
Second.
And any discussion? And just for the record, if anybody in the audience doesn't know, this is where if people do not pay whatever debts it is, then the South Carolina Revenue Department will collect that when the people are entitled to a refund, so to speak. A lot of municipalities do it. We did it years ago and then didn't do it, but we're going to try to start doing it again. Anything you want to add on it, Bob? Or any questions, any discussions?
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And hopefully it will bring in some revenue from unpaid bills or whatever it may be. All in favor then of second reading of 1822, do so with show of hands. And the next one is 1823. This is the one with the franchise payments. And this is the one that we will be dropping it from 4% to 3.5%. And is there a motion for second reading?
I make a motion.
And a second. I will second. And I will recognize Mark first.
Again, we don't want to raise taxes when we don't have to. And I think you take things slowly, and we can change this if it's not enough. But you don't go ahead and charge 4% when you can charge 3.5% and more than cover what your current situation is.
Anything else?
No.
And I will kind of agree with that. I think based on what the 1% equals under our guidelines or our town, the way it's set up, 1% equals about $200,000. So 0.5% is about $100,000. We had a deficit roughly at the beginning of the year at around 70,000, so to speak. We also increased some other stuff that helped offset some of that stuff. And that's kind of why the other thing is on the agenda tonight with the garbage fees to kind of help offset the increase that we're getting. And so in my mind too, if we need, say, $70,000 worth of increased revenue, plus I think our medical and all that stuff went up about $11,000, $12,000 last year, and we'll probably go up again. I think the $100,000 will be enough, especially when we consider the Honda dealership coming into town. Freddie's is open. A few other businesses like that are moving in, and the other company out there on Western Lane that will be soon beginning construction. They may not come online as far as a business license between now and the end of this fiscal year. I believe the Honda dealership will, and that's probably going to be a pretty hefty business license for an automobile dealer. I think between those other revenue places and the 0.5% and then offsetting those other things, I think we'll be good. And I think it's better to not raise it until we need it than raise it and then come back later and say, well, we can't drop it. We went through that same thing with the Oak Strut and had some surplus. In the first year, we decided not to do anything with it because rainy day. And it's been 3 years, and we still have a surplus. Whereas I think we could probably look at how to use that money maybe for the parking pad stuff or some other things in town, some of it anyway. But I agree, it's hard to get people to get rid of a tax once it's in place. It's easier to go up on it than it is to get rid of it. And I think we do have some businesses moving in town, some new ones. I talked to a large developer today about a large tract. We got to figure out how to get it into town. It's congestion. And it can come in, but there's some DOT things that got to be worked out, and hopefully we can get them worked out. We don't know. But I do know there's 3 or 4 other businesses either moving into rented space, looking at buying land, that kind of stuff. The economy's getting better. Things are moving, and I think those things will help offset and increase down the road. But right now, I think what we got to look at is the deficit we got and the income we got and the revenue we got, and I think that 0.5% plus the other stuff covers it, and probably still have a little bit of slack. Anyone else?
Yes. I don't know whether you subscribe to Route 50, but it's to connect state and local governments. They send you an email every day with financial information, community information, how to improve cities. And the last week, it's been a series of articles about city and town revenue and how the revenue and growth is slowing down. And they believe part of the problem is a nasty word that starts with an I called inflation. If you look, first of all, the Honda dealership isn't here. They haven't bought a business license.
No, but they're building.
They're not here.
They'll be here before the year's there.
Okay,
well, the fiscal
it's my
year's
turn.
out. Go ahead.
All right. If we had a full staff, if we had every police slot filled, which I hope we will, it's not subject to argument because Bob figured it out. I know you don't trust the women to do it, but anyway, it's over $800,000 in benefits, and that's how you get good employees, and that's how you keep them. And that is a lot of money. It's a lot more than $10,000, but we're not going there. All you got to do is look at this agenda and look at the recycling fee going up, because we're going to nickel and dime these poor people to death with that. Then look at the cost of the jail in Richland County. That is a lot of money, and it's not going to stop. It's going to get worse. And then finally, the recycling is another thing. The cost of the indigent lawyer, which we've estimated, but we don't know what it is or how bad it's going to be. I want to be prepared. And if you don't have a landline, if you, because this is just cable, electric, and landlines that'll go up $1 or $2 or $3 a month. I think the town needs it. Do it. Be done with it. Have the money you need. Quit adding $8 and $4 and $6 to the tax bill. Do it one time and end it. I think this is a no-brainer. I understand y'all don't want to spend more money or get more money than we need. I think we need it. And I think every agenda for the past couple of months, it's self-evident. The things are skyrocketing. Have y'all not noticed that? Anyway, I think it will solve a multitude of problems, and that's what we're up here for. So I ask for y'all to vote for it.
Now, as my older person has said, because I'm, 6 years older than you?
Just say 2 or 3.
Well, I'm 37. I turn it around. The Honda dealer will probably, weather permitting, open in December, January, maybe. The Krager Company bought the property directly across the street. It will be a distribution center, not a place to go and buy plumbing supplies. They haven't even broken ground. The jail, the cost of our housing prisoners in Richland County is going to double. The state has not yet released any facts or figures for medical plan for next year. I'm a retired state employee, I know. We haven't gotten the notice yet if your rates are going to go up. Chief, when will we have the 7 that we're lacking in police department?
I had a crystal ball.
Well, approximately. March, April? We were 7 officers short at one time, and everybody's been harping on code enforcement. Well, everybody's a police officer first. We had 1 officer doing code enforcement. The other 2 were patrolling to keep you safe. That was the chief's decision. My father was a police officer back in the 30s, and when he was cut off from the railroad during the Depression. So I do have a high regard for the police department. And Irmo's police department is one of the finest police departments in the Municipal Association of South Carolina, according to their records. We are the 10th safest city or town in the state of South Carolina. I don't know if I've told this story. If I have, you're going to hear it again. My wife had me go back in the house to get something that she had forgotten, and I got back in the car angry because I had to go back in the house, open the deadbolt, blah, blah, blah. Coming back out, I didn't lock the deadbolt into the laundry room, got in the car and drove off. Didn't put the garage door down. 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm at Myrtle Beach, and I get a call from a Irmo police officer. Sir, we're at your house, and your garage door's up. We checked your house. Everything seems to be normal. We locked your door coming out of your house, pushed the button, and we put your door down. Everything seems to be safe. It was.
Except for a little bit of food.
Well, I didn't check what y'all might have consumed, but that's how safe Irmo is. I live in Old Friars Gate. I've lived there since 1986 when it was not in the town of Irmo. We voted in November of '86. I moved there in April. We voted in November to become members of the town of Irmo. I feel very safe there. Like I said, I'm 73 years old. I'm a young 73, but I have a high regard for our police department, and I don't want the town to get caught short having to provide benefits when we do get fully staffed again. And nickel and diming people is not a good way to do it. Leaving this franchise fee as we had proposed it before at 4% will give us a cushion. We might have to go back again if we get full employment and if rates go up for our police department, medical care, dental care. That's one of those things you don't know about until it lands. Irmo does not have a property tax on your homes, your automobiles, or your boats. All you pay is Richland County tax, or you pay Lexington County tax. The town has did away with it back during the mayorship of John Gibbons. That's been over 10 years. Franchise fees, $5, $4, $6, that's a whole lot better than $145 or more, depending on the size of your home, how many cars you have, boats, etc., motorcycles. I think we've got a good game going here. And I agree with you.
Thank you.
Miss Alabama.
Okay.
War Eagle.
Roll Tide.
You want to speak? You done?
I'm done.
You know, I gave this opportunity to try to figure out why you were so steadfast wanting to drop it 0.5% to save the taxpayers $100,000 in taxes. And then on the agenda, I see items E, F, and G, where you're actually asking people to pay more, what Ms. Condon called nickel and diamond on these fees. I mean, the jail is double. You want to add $4 for garbage. You want to increase the judge's salary, you know, $4,000, $5,000, you know. I mean, these are all things that has to be paid for by somebody. And to have this money to pay for it, this 1%, it seems to me was a way to do it, is to have that cushion. Now, you say we don't need to get more money than we need, but then you just have the need right here, E, F, and G. Those look like needs to me. And on top of that, I don't understand the logic from that you're giving us about, you know, you got these companies that are going to come online. You keep talking about the Honda dealership, and I don't think they're going to be producing revenue until well after next year. And I guess you got the Krager company you're talking about going on as a distribution center. Those are great, but that's not going to help us this fiscal year. That's next fiscal year, if anything. So I think, Mrs. Condon, you're right. You know, we need to go ahead and collect that 1% now, and we might have to go even higher, to tell you the truth, because the way you're talking about the medical situation, we don't know what's going to happen with that. And if we do get fully staffed with the police department, that's going to increase our medical costs, or we have to pass it on to our employees or something. But that has to be taken care of. So I'm ready to vote. I mean, I don't.
Well, everybody gets a chance to speak, and everybody gets a chance to speak a second time if anybody wants to. I don't know if you.
Well, I'll just reiterate that when I did the math, we don't need the entire extra 0.5%. If we don't need it, we shouldn't charge it now. You're saying nickel and dime. I want to keep the money in my pocket until I have to take it out. And I think they do too. So, look, you can vote for this tax increase. You can. I'm not going to.
And I will address some of the things that were made. I'm not sure about the inflation. I know our cost of living has gone up about 1 to 1.5% for the last couple of years in our budget, and we've always kind of calculated that into that. The Honda dealership, Julius is correct, will probably be open in December and January. Our fiscal year runs until June, so they would be paying a business license in this year, which will give us an indication of what to work with in the next budget. E, F, and G. E has to do with the jail, which Kathy has referred to, the $48,000. Yes, that used to be 0, then it went to 25, then it went to 43, and then it went to 71. I wish there was something we can do about that. It's on the agenda tonight because we do need to kind of decide. I put it on there because I think Bob needs to have an answer. He wanted to do a budget amendment, and I told him before we did the budget amendment, we need to vote on it, talk about it, because there are some things that we need to kind of discuss. I'm not for it either, and I would vote against it if I could come up with an alternative, and I have. But Eric doesn't think we can do it, and and I doubt we can either, but at least they're ideas. As far as the judge's salary, going from 25 to 29, the salary we're currently paying is 36, and that's what we're moving it to, so it's really not a cost. It actually is going to save money because we have 2 judges now, one of them at 25 and one of them at 36. Now we're going to have one at 36, so it's actually going to save us some money, which is money that goes into the account. So we're going to end up with $25,000 in our surplus account that can also help cover some of the items.
Wait a minute, you said 25 to 39?
The indigent legal cost, we did have a dollar item in our budget. We increased that during the budget because of what we looked at, but since that time, it's also gone down. For whatever reason, when the Supreme Court made that ruling and everybody started getting indigent defense, then it dropped. So I don't know that that's going to go up again. We may even end up with $1,000, $2,000 left over in that, which isn't a lot, but who's to say? I still believe with the Honda dealer coming on and the 800,000 benefits, that may be what the benefits are worth to the employees. That's not what it costs the town. Those benefits cost the town.
That's what it costs the
town. About $11,000 more in the last 2 years than it did the year before.
We're not going to argue about this because.
Well, I'm just saying, and I do not know what the common comment had to do with me not trusting women or not relying on women. I don't know where that came from, but we can argue about that another day and another time. But I think it was a little bit uncalled for.
Could I ask you a question, sir?
Yeah.
Item G, it says raise Judge Adams' salary from 25 to 29.
Yeah.
You just said 36.
Right. Mickey was paid $36,000.
He was paid $36,000. Yes,
Right.
but I'm just reading what it says here.
Yeah. Mickey was paid $36,000 a year, and he took his own payroll and did all that himself.
Okay, I understand now. This is what we have to pay. We have to pay Lexington County.
Yes.
We're going to pay her 29 plus the thing.
Okay.
It equals 36.
Okay.
Or 36,
because that's people who are looking at their
and
agenda.
the salary that we were paying the associate judge is going to go away, so there's a $25,000
Right.
back into our account.
I just wanted to be sure I was on the same.
But we haven't decided we're not going to have an associate judge, though. I mean, we still might have an associate judge, and that's what their salary is going to be, right?
Somebody could put it on the agenda and we could vote on it, but
we haven't done away with the associate judge, is what I'm saying.
Well, as soon as we have the new judge come in October 1st, there won't be an associate judge. So technically, October 1st, yeah, we'll be doing away with the associate judge. We won't have one. Anyway, I just think the 0.5% increase is enough to cover everything with the Honda dealership and the true expenses of what we're going to pay in benefits. They go up. They go up about $12,000, $15,000 a year. They go up some, go down some, go up some, go down some, but that's kind of the average. So we're looking at a $15,000 increase. We're looking at a $48,000 increase, and I think the $200,000 is way too much. But that's my end of my story.
You're being short-sighted, and I don't need to say anything else.
Okay.
Let's vote.
All in favor then of, get back to that page. All in favor then of the ordinance 1823, which is to decrease the franchise from 4 to 3.5, do so with show of hands. And all opposed? And let me see, who was it? Kathy and Barry. Next item is 1824. This is the one where we are changing our ordinance to better mirror the state law. Is there a motion for second reading of 1824?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? And Kathy?
No, I think we need to do this.
Yeah, it kind of lines up with what the state law says and hopefully gets rid of some of the confusion in the future. hopefully. Any other discussion? Mark?
No, I agree.
Any? All in favor then of second reading of ordinance 1824, do so with show of hands. Next is second reading of 1825. This is the one to do with the handicap, yes. Is there a motion for second reading?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And Councilman Walker.
This is pretty straightforward. Any car that has anybody has a valid handicap plate or sticker or tag or whatever you want to call it in their window of their car, anybody who's identified as having a handicap vehicle, they don't need to be approached by the code enforcement officer. They don't need to be asked to prove that they're handicapped or get permission from the town administrator to park on their grass or park in their yard.
I agree. I don't think there's a good way to categorize this or to tell people where to park when they have a handicap sticker. I think it's up to us and the police department to use good judgment. If somebody needs to park at the front door for 30 minutes to get someone handicapped out of the car, that ought to be all right. And then they can go back to a regular parking place. But this is a very humane thing, a very something that we ought to do as good people. And I think we ought to leave them alone. If they have a handicap sticker, let them unload, discharge, whatever, as long as they need to, and then go back to a regular parking place. I think it's the right thing to do.
No, I agree.
The only thing is, right now, it doesn't say 30 minutes and then move. So
that's just an example.
I know, but that
we
ain't,
might have to do that, but
that ain't what it said.
I would hope not.
Now, the other question I got is how you're going to determine it's a valid handicap if the officer doesn't.
It's got a date on it.
It's got a date on it.
There's a date on all the placards.
There's
Yeah.
a date on it.
But the placard's hanging in the window, and it's got a photo on it that matches somebody.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how are they going to know it's valid without looking at it and looking at them?
It's a handicapped car. The vehicle is handicapped.
Right.
So
But
leave
you
them
said
alone.
valid, so how are they going to validate if it's valid?
If they got a sticker hanging in the window, that's all I need to see. If they got a plate on their car, that's all I need to see. The Department of Motor Vehicles handles issuing those plates and those stickers. I don't have any doubt that they don't do it.
Mirror, you can take it off one car and put it on another. Is that
I don't have any doubt that that's done, but I'm not going to sit there and try to micromanage that, is what I'm saying.
Well, the handicap placard is not designated for this car and not that car. My wife has one. She uses it with my little car. If I'm driving her somewhere, she uses it in her car. She's driving.
Yeah.
But we might have to clarify this, that the car must park in a valid parking space with the handicap placard. And if it's somewhere else, then it's temporary. In the case of somebody having to get in a front door because of, and my wife went through chemo 3 times, so I understand, and she has a new right knee. So I am familiar with that. That's why we go in the garage door, because it's 2 steps.
We may have to change it or tweak it or whatever, but I'm convinced this is the right thing.
Yes,
to
ma'am.
do.
Leave it alone.
And I am
Leave
too, but
people
I
alone.
keep hearing 2 different versions, and that's what I'm trying to figure out which is the one we're going to vote on. The one that's going to be amended, which was brought up at the last meeting that hadn't been amended, or leave it as it is, which you're saying is for 30-minute temporary.
No, that was an example.
Well, that's an example, but that ain't what this says.
Well, I know
That
this.
means anybody can pull up there and park.
Again, we have to use some common sense, Hardy. This is what the common sense is. If you see somebody with a handicap sticker, leave them alone. Don't bother them. That's what the point
So
is.
anybody can stick a handicap parker on the car and then just go park in the front.
Don't bother them.
Even if they're not handicapped.
Don't bother them.
No.
If they got a
I
handicap
would
sticker on their
disagree with
car, if they got a handicap plate, don't bother them.
Do you
If
think
they're
there's a lot of that?
Oh, I don't think there's a lot of problem in the first place.
We know there's a problem, because we've seen
Yeah.
it.
Where? I've not heard of any or seen any.
We know about Sarah Watson.
Yeah,
could
Sarah
not
was
walk.
dying.
That's when this
Right.
came up.
But they pulled up and dropped her off and then pulled the vehicle
Yeah,
back
but
out.
sometimes it was a little longer than 5 minutes because they had to get her situated and then, I don't know how you put time restraints or anything else. I just thank the Lord I'm not handicapped
Right.
because they have enough problems without us giving them some more.
But I think I'm hearing three different kind of stories,
Well,
and three different
ask
things.
this.
So I just,
If you want to amend
as
it.
far as the code, no, I'm not going to amend it. I think if the people that want it amended, it's been mentioned twice, we need to work on it, and yet it's not been worked on.
No, it hasn't.
It's the same.
I think we need to leave them alone. I'm ready to vote. You ready to vote? I mean, I don't have any more discussion.
All right. I didn't know if Julius wanted to amend it since he had said something about it.
Well, I mean, this is going to be a judgment call by the police officer.
Absolutely.
The police officer has a question, but if the car has a valid handicap plate hanging down, it's exempt.
I think that's a humane thing to do.
Now, if you want to go further, if your yard, go to Lowe's, get a handicap parking space, nail it up, put it right in front of your parking pad, and bang, it's good to go forever.
I never thought about that. That's a bad idea.
I mean, I see no problem with it as it is, but someone will.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I think that's, someone will, and I think we will, and it's written in a way that we're going to have just as many problems after the fact than we did.
And
Have we had any problems, Bob, that you know of with your issues that you go address with whomever?
And as somebody remarked one night, Irmo is getting older,
Yes, Irmo is getting older.
and I'm having a leg cramp from crawling under my house today. So I've got to stand up for a minute. Haven't done that in years, but I heard a strange noise, so I crawled under my house today.
Stay in there, you're fine. Can we do anything to help?
Not now. I'm good. No, I have to go up 8 steps if I park at my front door. I park in my garage and go up 2 steps.
Can we vote?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, we can vote. I'm just stretching my leg.
All in favor then of 1825, second reading, do so with show of hands.
Mr. Mayor, did I see you vote for that?
Yeah, I just think it needs to be clarified.
You finally got
Because I
the
think
floor.
there's some issues that, whatever, but I'll just point them to y'all when they come up.
I told you, listen to me, you do better.
Yeah. Well, I thought I didn't listen to women or something.
You don't, but you need to start.
New business, item XA, 1826. This is the one that has to do with the business license. State law did something, and they have came up with changes that need to be made to anybody that has it worded the other way. So we were changing that. Is there a motion for first reading of 1826?
Make a motion.
Second.
And I will recognize Councilman Pouliot and then Councilwoman Condon.
No, I mean, this just makes sense to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of whatever they call it, housekeeping. State law, for anybody out there, state law has changed and said that business license can only be charged on gross receipts and gross revenue, not total income, because that's a different definition according to them. So we're changing ours to say gross receipts and gross revenue. And some other little things too, but that's mainly it. Any discussion?
Yeah, that's clarification. The gross receipts or gross revenue, the difference between that and total income is what? I mean, it's the same thing, isn't it?
Well, it is to me.
Okay.
And it is to you.
Yeah.
But to someone down there, total income could mean, if you're the boss, your income and not the gross revenue to the business. And I guess there was whatever on that, and somebody finally came in and said, yeah, that needs to be changed from income to revenue.
Thank you.
So this is proper verbiage for the Department of Revenue.
In the Supreme Court ruling that came down.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, whatever.
I think somewhere in the state, probably somebody decided they wanted to pay their business license on their income in their business, not the gross revenue. And so it got challenged and it got clarified.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Something. All in favor then of 1826, do so with a show of hands. And next is 1827. This is kind of the same thing. We had to change it in another part of our ordinance. So is there a motion for first reading of 1827?
So move.
And a second.
Second.
And again, the same thing. We just got to take it out of our ordinances wherever it was and put it the way they want it. Any discussion? All in favor then of first reading of 1827, do so with show of hands. And what is this one? Next one is ordinance 1828. This is the, I guess, repeal ordinance. Yes. Is there a motion for ordinance 1828?
So move.
And a second.
Second.
And Councilman Walker, and then Councilwoman Condon.
Okay, we have, this ordinance is the parking ordinance everybody's been talking about tonight. And the ordinance, the way it's written, has a lot of flaws in it that I don't think we have thoroughly vetted or thoroughly thought about. For instance, one problem is this is a front yard parking ordinance. In the ordinance, it says in the front, and I'm just going to read it to you. It should be unlawful to park any vehicle anywhere in the front yard of a residence except in the driveway or parking area approved by the zoning administrator, Bob. Parking on the grass, front lawn area of any residence is allowed for visitors only for temporary parking. We haven't defined how we're going to identify visitors or how we're going to determine somebody is temporarily parking, as long as it doesn't kill the grass. Parking in the dirt areas, in the front lawn areas of the home is not allowed except for temporary use by visitors. The point being, this is a front yard parking ordinance. We have a situation throughout Friarsgate. For instance, the picture you all see in front of you here of 508 Lower Howell Road. Do you have the picture over there? Okay. You didn't put it on the Bob?
No, sir, we don't have it up there with the address.
Anyway, it's 508 Lord Howe Road. This is the front of this lady's house. And as you notice, there's no parking at all. There's no driveway or anything in the front of her house. But if you look to the side of her house on the next picture, that's where she put her parking pad, on the side of her house. This lady was approached by the code enforcement, said that her pad was not properly delineated with the block, with the 2x4s or whatever to signify it being an extension of her parking pad. In reality, the code enforcement shouldn't even approach her at all. This is not the front of her house that she put her driveway on. The front of her house is not used for parking at all. There's a lot of houses throughout Friarsgate, corner houses, that they do not park in front of their property. They only park on the side of their property. So therefore, all of those homes are exempt from this ordinance automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They shouldn't even be approached by code enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have an ordinance that says that if you have a visitor, they're allowed to park temporarily as long as it doesn't kill the grass and all the other stuff we have in there. We haven't decided how or determined how we're going to determine somebody's a visitor, how we're not going to, if somebody's visiting me overnight or whatever, and they want to park on my grass, how do we determine that that person's a visitor without going up to the house, knocking on the door, and physically asking them, are you a visitor to Irmo? If you are, you know there's a parking ordinance. You can't park in the grass. You know, you're only going to be here for a small amount of time. That's where we're running into problems with a lot of the citizens. We need to rescind this ordinance or repeal it until we can figure out the details on how we're going to do these things, if we're going to do it. I know that our whole objective was to make Irmo look better, and those are two examples that I came across that people have complained to me about personally. And quite frankly, I didn't think about it while the ordinance was being developed, and I'm not sure anybody else did here, but if we did, we didn't address them, and we need to. In the meantime, I don't want to put the police officer or the code enforcement officer in the situation where he's going to go and basically, I don't want to say obstruct or hassle or intimidate our citizens, but talk to their guests and say, hey, you're a guest in Irmo, you need to have a sticker or you need to have an identifying patch that says you're a guest and you're going to park on your grass temporarily. We don't need to do that. We need to back up and figure out how we're going to do this ordinance the right way.
I hadn't even thought about this side yard thing. And I'm not sure how to solve it. But the visitor problem is a problem. And I would be open to anybody telling me what they think we ought to do. Other than repealing it. Because if you have guests, which I hope people do have guests, how are you going to know it's a guest? And do you want a policeman knocking on your door asking you, are these your guests? It's embarrassing for them and for the homeowner.
Well, we can issue yellow stickers or something.
That's really tacky.
I mean,
well, the city of Columbia does this on streets that are narrow, streets that have limited parking. There are some houses near 5 Points, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 houses that have one parking space for the owner. They may be 2 meters in front of a house. And if you have a guest, the city of Columbia issues it used to be blue, it may be a different color now, but it was a blue pass. And you put it in the front window of your car, or the back window, in case it was a driveway. And that signifies it's a temporary person parking there. And I think the limit was 3 days. That was on Lauren Street, just in case you want to go by and see it.
I think a lot of this can be addressed with no overnight parking or questioning when there is something overnight parking. As they're patrolling, they go around, they see something, they make a notation, and when they go around a few hours later, they may want to ask at that point or after midnight or whatever, see if it's a regular guest. I mean, maybe do they have a registry, Chief? Do they have a registry of being able to see if a car is designated to a house, to an owner of a house? Oh, they'll email you, and that tends to work?
Yeah, people talk to us. We're not
Good.
They communicate with us. I mean, we have 99% compliance with any ordinances. I don't know what to tell you.
but that's what I'm saying. You're requiring them to call and register?
I don't require anything, but they go a little step further and let us know they're having guests. So that's what they've been doing, guys.
Well, okay, but that's...
All right, now you spoke. I haven't spoke, so we're going to kind of keep it back in line here. Bob, Can you address this? That house, I think you told me.
It was a peculiar situation. We had approved her parking back in February, and because I'm driving around town every day trying to go through 2 or 3 streets, about 3 weeks ago, I ran down that little cul-de-sac that she lives on, right off of Lord Howe Road, and was writing her address down because I saw the gravel over there as a parking pad, but didn't see any borders. And I didn't have my list with me, so I had forgotten that she was already approved because it's on the side of the house. She's not required to do anything.
Right.
And so I called Bobby Dale and had about 10 properties to have him look at. And he went over there and talked to her and called me back and said, she's on the list. And I said, oops, my bad. Apologized to her. And then she called me up and I apologized to her also. Solved in about 10 minutes. But yes, she is on the side of the house, and we've got a bunch of those.
Yeah, we do.
And there's no requirement for any kind of a pad or anything if they park next to their house.
And I also want to add a kind of a different scenario. I got a call from a lady who lives back behind the Mayor's Bank, and the officer had been by there. They have a dirt road kind of going through their property, and she had said they had been given an abatement notice about parking in theirs. And I asked her, I said, well, I was thinking this property was on general commercial, which it is. So it doesn't apply because it's not single-family residential property. All I did was call Bob and verify that, and he called the officer and said, oh, and they said, okay, fine, disregard it. Is there mistakes made sometimes here and there? Yes, I think we all make mistakes. But let me look at some of this stuff right here that we brought up. It does say in the front yard, which means kind of the front yard, anything in the front plane of the house. So if it's the side yard they're parking on, it doesn't apply to them. They can park on the side yard. And, does an officer forget sometimes maybe, or did Bob forget when he went by there or something? Yes, but, it got resolved. It was resolved. It also says here, parking on the grass front lawn area of any resident is allowed for visitors. How do they know they're a visitor? Well, when the officer sees a car parked and he goes and knocks on the door and says, y'all can't park here, and they say, that's my family, they're visiting, oh, okay. They leave.
That's my point, though.
That's the point, though.
You don't want people doing that.
Why not? They got to go up on in there.
I don't want a cop coming to my house, knocking on my door and saying, who's this in the car? That's what I'm saying.
Hey, yes, they do have a right and all that good stuff, too. It's in the state law and all that stuff. Yes, they do. But, yeah, when they get out and go knock on the door and they say, hey, we're a visitor, they can walk off and say, fine. That's it. It's case done. And I guarantee you, everybody that has a visitor pulling up the yard, an officer isn't there knocking on the door, because I know homes in the area that have cars parking in the yard that are permanently parking there because I know where they live. Right up and down the road and see it. But they don't, they're not going to get to every home every day all the time. I would almost bet out of the 526 homes that were previously educated, some of them that hadn't got an abatement notice is probably because they're not parking in the yard when the officer rides by. Maybe they're still doing it, but maybe not at that time. I think it is written well. I think it's been working out. I think out of the 526 that were spotted in the education period, came into compliance. I've had a lot of people tell me the only reason they were doing it is because everybody else in the neighborhood was doing it. I've had a lot of people tell me it is starting to look a whole lot better. And if you look at the thing, and we talk about the compromises, the first one we put on there said you couldn't park in your front yard. That got voted down. The next one we did has on here you can park here, 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 and you can use poured concrete, you can use asphalt, you can use concrete stepping stones, pavers, bricks, you can use gravel, crush and run, mulch, pine straw. I know some of the things we calculated were $200 for the pine straw, for the mulch, and for the timbers. So doing a $10,000 parking pad is not accurate. You can do one that's $200. If you want to concrete it or pave it, and I know some people have, then you can do that. But there are other alternatives because we did look into it and we did listen and we came up with alternatives. There's a whole list of stuff there as far as what the parking pad can be made out of, and there's 4 choices. And everybody that Bob has gone and spoke with has said, okay, fine, I'll put it there, and went about their business and did it. I think it has worked out good. Is there some people that's still not happy? Yes. Is there some people that are not going to be happy? Yes. But I think there's a lot of people in the town that are glad we did something and are happy, and a lot that were parking in the yard are doing it. I know one home that they're not parking in the yard anymore. They're actually parking in the driveway. And they had a driveway that had 4 cars in the yard. They're back in the driveway now because they were told they had to, and they did. But to enforce something that we've already kind of started working on, and 200, 300, 400 people has already built the parking pad, and then to turn around and say, to address some of the other stuff, and I'm not going to get into all the notes and everything, but years ago, there were probably 20 homes in town, 30, 40, and then it got more. If people would have been parking next to the driveway, half on, half off, or to the outside, or barely on the yard in the front, this would have never came about. This came about because it went from parking next to the yard, or parking next to the driveway, or parking half on the road, to just parking at the front door. And it just, if people would have said, I'm going to do this and only that and no more, we probably would have never had to pass an ordinance. But that's the way things go. We can't go out and knock on the door and tell somebody, we wish you wouldn't do this or wish you wouldn't do that. We can't do it unless we have an ordinance that says they can't do it. And we just got through passing this exemption thing because, and now you're saying, this ain't working. I think it is. I think some people are upset. And I think some of the people that signed the petition or even spoke to us about it already have parking pads in their yard. So anyway, I'm opposed to repealing it. I think it's working. I think it's been going good. I think a lot of people in the town appreciate that we finally stepped up and did something. It had to do with the deterioration and even the stuff about the cars on blocks or haphazardly parking. Well, we could say any of this parking in the yard is haphazardly parking. That's a definitive term that we can define. Anybody can define it. But to also say it's okay, and we agree that we want these things addressed, but not these things, I think those same people that want to park on blocks or haphazardly have the same rights as the people that don't want us to tell them where to put the parking pad. It gets into where the line's going to be drawn and who gets to choose that line. I hate to say it, but the way we work in the world is, United States, we have an elected body. You elect people, they make those decisions. You don't like them, you unelect them, like somebody else. If they get unelected, fine. If they get reelected, then you got to deal that they're the majority, and that's what the public wanted. And I think that's where we are. It's passed, it's working, it's good, and it's approving, and we got a lot of compromising, a lot of alternatives in there. We didn't address the side yard so that people that parked on the side wouldn't be. So there's already a lot of exemptions in there for a lot of stuff. But that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, so you're saying it's okay for the police to come knocking on, the code enforcement people to come knocking on your door if you have guests, to find out if you have a guest. You're saying that it's okay for visitors to, the houses that don't have parking in the front, but they can have parking on the side, not to be uniform and not to have a parking pad down. Those are the things you're saying that this ordinance will allow, and that's okay. What I'm saying, we're having a discussion, yeah. So what I'm saying is, I don't believe that the citizens want that. We have a whole bunch of houses that are on the corner, like, for instance, Lord Howe, that are not even, they're exempt from the parking ordinance. They're going to still look like, whatever. When Mr. Pulliam drives by their house, they're going to see people parked on the grass on the side of their house. There's a house over on Twisted Hill. I had to go by there 3 times to look at it. This guy's got 6 cars parked on the side of his house. There is absolutely no grass on the lawn. It's all dirt. But you know what? He's legal because he's parking on the side of his house. And I'm like, wow, what did we accomplish by this law? Nothing. This guy hasn't changed it one bit. I think we need to revisit the ordinance to figure out how do we determine the guests, We need to revisit the ordinance to determine this whole parking thing on the side of the house. I mean, you can put that word out there that anybody who has a corner lot, you're exempt from this law. So now you got a situation going to put the Hatfields and the McCoys against each other. Well, they can park on their side of their house. Why can't I park on mine? Because I have a parking driveway in the front of my house? That's all.
Well, since you asked me, I'll answer.
Well,
yes.
I'm asking council. I'm not just asking.
Well, no, you said you. But yes, I'm in support of this ordinance the way it is. I think the front yard is what we were trying to address, not the side yard. You can add that. You can bring it up at the next meeting and put it on there to amend it and add that if you want to. I wouldn't vote for it, but if you want to add that, we can add it. And if it gets the votes, it gets the votes. You were saying we. I keep hearing this we. And I think at our budget amendment, our budget workshops this year, I kept hearing about how we needed to find this extra money, and we needed to pass something. And I asked you.
We meaning council, yeah.
And I asked you, then come up with this stuff. We didn't get it. I'm going to say to you right now, you want to amend it, you want to come up with all the stuff. I've been hearing we need to come up with a better ordinance since January, but yet we've got nothing except this one change that we voted on earlier. If you want to amend it and add all this stuff and come up with some better stuff, hey, do it.
All right, I do. Let's get rid of this, and we'll come up with something.
No, get rid of it, come up with something and add it to this. Keep this on the books and amend it as we need to.
All right.
You mentioned that we said we were going to work on it, or they mentioned we said we was going to work on it. Come up with some stuff.
This is not working.
Well, I think it is working. I heard a 99% compliance, and I think from a lot of neighbors and a lot of people, they're happy it is working. We can argue all night back and forth with everybody.
We're not arguing, Harvey. Why do you say arguing? We're
as to who the majority is.
Yeah.
I think the majority wants this ordinance. Y'all think the majority doesn't.
I don't think people want police coming to their house when they have a guest over, asking them if they're a guest.
Well, I don't know that they would all the time. I've had guests at my house and they not came over. Of course, mine park in the road. But, hey. And if they park in my yard, guess what? I'm going to go tell them to get out of my yard. I don't want to park in my yard.
Now they're parking in the road. Now, God forbid they have a fire and the fire truck can't get through.
County roads are built to county standards to handle all that, so I'm going to trust that the county knows what they're doing and all the roads are done. But anyway.
Okay, that's enough, you two. What about the visitor thing? Now, that concerns me.
Well,
if you have,
I think it's like it says. When somebody parks in the yard, the police officer's not going to know until they go to the door and say, hey, you're not parked. And the people say, hey, I got family in town. Oh, okay, fine, boom.
But you did that, though. You invaded their privacy to do that.
Well, it discourages visitors.
Absolutely, it does.
I've not had a visitor tell me they're not going to visit me.
It does?
Comes to your door and says, of course it does.
I think it's an exaggeration of a
police officers don't come to my door.
Really?
No, they don't. I might see them in the street or something, but if they come to the door, there's something bad wrong.
I don't know.
You know what? He had a new officer come the other day, and they brought the cop by to see us to introduce him to me, and I was nervous because I thought he was coming to get me for something. I had to think twice.
You have a guilty conscience?
Well, I was nervous. I mean, but he told I'm here to introduce myself, and I said, oh, okay, it's cool. But there was a police car in front of my house, and the cop walked up to my door. So I don't want to do that to the folks if they got guests, especially mom's coming over for dinner, grandma's for Thanksgiving, and you got police on there saying, you're parking on the grass. Are you a guest?
Well, then my mama, she'd invite him in to have lunch with her. Mama always loved to feed somebody.
I agree that we have a very good compliance with all this, and which I think is to the citizens' credit, whether they like it or not. I think it is, but it also has to do with the ticket for $1,087.50. I would comply too. If you told me you were going to give me a ticket for $1,087.50, I'd do what this said too.
Now, we've got the judge in the chamber right now, and
let's put her on the spot.
Let's put her on the spot. How many times in the history of the $1,087.50 ticket has the town issued one?
Don't answer that. You better say
To the
every
best,
time
to
you
the
get
best
a
of your ability.
Let me address this because this is getting out of, the fine, according to South Carolina, is a maximum of $500. The state adds on a $500 fine, $587 to it. On a $200 fine, they add about $200 and something to it. On a $100 fine, they add about $100 and something to it. Somebody had asked a question about where that money goes. The $500 that we get goes into our general fund. The other money gets sent to the state, broken down into various categories and all that stuff. One of the things that we did years ago, and we could stop that any time. We don't have to do it. We put on the ticket for the benefit and the convenience of the individual who gets it, that it could be $1,087 altogether. That's not a fine. It's a $500 fine plus court costs. We could not put anything on there if we wanted to. But we do that so people will know what the possibility is. We could put on there that it's a maximum $500 fine and be within the legal rights of doing that, because it is. They might get surprised when they have to write a check for $1,087 to the court before they leave, but we did that years ago to kind of let people know so there wouldn't be no surprises. They wouldn't think it's a maximum $500 fine and then be asked to pay $1,087.
So we're going to throw ourselves on the mercy of the court and pray that the judge has a good day and she didn't come in here mad.
Well,
you know,
I don't agree that we're throwing ourselves at the mercy of court. I think
sure you are.
I think a whole lot of this is an exaggeration of stuff and a whole lot of fear-mongering as far as what's going to happen. Of all the times that I've heard of everything that happens in the court, even with our previous judge, that doesn't happen. Right.
If somebody wants to pay that and not come to court. So they, so that's why a lot of officers, correct? You write that on there and then they don't have to come to court if they want to pay the maximum fine. But a lot of times when they come to court, they don't necessarily get the maximum fine.
Right. We're not going to have an open debate here. We're just going to go through this stuff here.
Well, I'm ready to vote. I mean, y'all.
I am too. Any more discussion? And we were at which one? 1828?
1828.
C. All in favor of Ordinance 1828, which is repealing Section 6.4, whatever it was, Paragraph 4.
A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, A through
A, B,
C. Do so a show of hands. All opposed? And let me write this down. Next is 1829. This is the annexation of the two properties down on St. Andrews Road. Is there a motion for approval of 1829? And I will make a motion. And
second.
Let me see. HK. KC.
This
is, if you look at it upside down, the property on the corner where it says Carriage Lane, that's where Stuart Bergen Roofing. Bergen Roofing. That's the one on the corner. The next one is that house, and I think Tina's Nails or something like that is in there.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then the next one is the other house, and
Driggers Photography, isn't it?
no, Driggers is on down over here
okay.
somewhere. But there was a photography place of some sort. They moved out. Stan said he's got somebody else moving in, and I can't remember what it was, but there's some kind of water sewer analytical company that tests water and sewer and all that kind of stuff. So they got a, office type.
So Bergen's not in town? I thought Bergen was in
No, now he told me he was talking to him too, but he hasn't talked to him yet. He's left him messages and all that kind of stuff, so I don't know if he'll come in or not. But but anyway, this is that property there. I think right across the street is that tire place, something. And I think they asked for general commercial. And I think everything else, as far as I know, around that area is general commercial or some type of commercial or something.
This is Dr. Chavez. Do you know Dr. Chavez?
That name sounds familiar. I don't know if Bob mentioned.
He's my doctor. But that's he's been there for years. He's turned on the Carriage Lane, and he has an office there on the left. Yeah, he's...
Anyway, that's about all I know about that.
Did he ask? He just asked us to come into town?
That's correct. This is Mr. Chavez. He owns both of their properties.
Nice.
It's what?
Mr. Chavez. His name is Jose and his wife Lenore Chavez.
It's really doctor.
Yeah.
I'm glad. It's because he knows me.
That's probably it.
Is that why he did it?
So.
That was a joke, y'all.
Any more discussion? All in favor then of first reading of 1829, do so a show of hands. And let's see, that one's that one. Next is the approval to accept the Richland County jail fees in the amount of $71 per day. I'm not really in favor of this, but I did ask Bob to put it on the agenda because he wanted to do a budget amendment, and I felt like we needed to talk about it before we did the budget amendment. And see if there's any alternatives. From Eric's opinion, there is not.
Eric's not in favor of a class action lawsuit?
He's not in the opinion of pulling in the gate and throwing them all out and driving off and leaving them. And not having to...
I like that idea.
Not having to... Yeah, I like it too. But I don't think it'll work.
Bring them right to the State House, drop them off.
Why do we take them to Richland and not Lexington?
Well, if they're Richland people, you got to take them to Richland. If they're Lexington people, you got to take them to Lexington. Lexington doesn't charge right now, but there's been talk about them doing it, but they've been talking about that for years too.
I mean, but we, as a town, can't we make the decision where we send these people out? Why not?
Well, if you were a Lexington County taxpayer and you were paying
if I do
into your jail on your property tax and you found out they were sticking all these other people from outside the county in there, you would probably be saying, hey, you can't do that. I'm not paying for that.
Well, I mean,
and if they did, they'd probably want to charge us for that, whatever they charge, say, their citizens.
Wait a minute, but the only thing is if they're doing a crime in Lexington County, you take them to Lexington County Jail, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a crime in Lexington, or you arrest them in Lexington, or they get...
They get arrested in Lexington, they go to Lexington.
Okay.
They get arrested in Richland, they go to Richland.
Yeah,
yes.
I think that's the law, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so...
We've got to follow the law.
So where all the crimes happening in Richland County?
No.
I mean...
And we could chase them into Lexington.
There you go.
Wow.
There you go.
And then...
There you go. Don't arrest anybody in Richland County anymore.
Oh, wow.
Push them over to Lexington.
See, I disagree with that now. I disagree. I'm in Lexington County.
Oh, I am too.
So we
but-
have no recourse? We have to pay this?
Well, and this is one reason I wanted it on here too. I think there is a recourse.
What?
But it's call your state legislators and tell them to fully fund government fund, because we lost $800,000 over the last 10 years, $80,000 a year out of that's what we get shorted.
Yes,
The
that's right.
counties get shorted close to $1 million a year. Some of them smaller because they're smaller counties, but some of the bigger counties. And when they get short $1 million and they go, what are we going to do? And they can't raise property tax either because they're under that same stuff. They haven't got a lot of avenues to do, so they go back and reinterpret whatever they want to, and then come back and say, hey, now Lexington County pays for their jail out of your property tax and whatever state monies come their way. Bristol County does the same thing. But they determine that and Bob can get into that, and George has educated me to some degree, and I don't know if I got more understood or more confused. But there are some cases when somebody, whatever, gets arrested and gets put in jail, they're not going to charge because they're state stuff.
Sessions, right.
General sessions. Right. But there are some stuff that if somebody gets charged for, we'll call it speeding on Lake Murray Boulevard.
We're not going to arrest them.
Oh, yeah, we're just not going to arrest them. We're just going to.
Well, not for speeding.
Well, I mean, if they're doing 100,
if they're going 100 down Lake Murray Boulevard and they got an old reckless, we probably would arrest them.
But then we're going to.
You can't go 100 down Lake Murray.
Throw them in jail, and they're going to charge us for that, even though it's a state violation. You know, I would agree that if we put somebody in jail for not cutting the grass or whatever those things are, yeah, we ought to pay for that court cost or that jail fee. But if it's all this other stuff, but you know, and it used to be kind of interpreted that way. Now, because they're getting shorted, they're looking for ways to make up lost revenue.
So is the municipal association going to help with this? No.
I doubt it.
And
has anyone canvassed them to see if they can help with this?
They're going to say it's not their fight.
Because all counties don't do it. There's only so many counties in the state that actually charge for jail fees, and there's so many of those that are actually charging municipalities. The rest of them aren't.
Did anybody pick the phone up and talk to Richland County?
You can call them.
Go
if you can get them to
ahead.
answer.
Go ahead.
You're the mayor.
Well,
that don't mean nothing. They don't answer. I can call somebody in Lexington County and talk to them more than I can over here. They don't.
Well, make Becky do it. She's a judge.
Well,
Lexington County.
Oh, damn.
3 hours soon.
You're right.
Okay, this goes back to the old premise. There's no state legislator who doesn't want our money.
Well, this is the county getting it.
Well, but this started out with the state
Well, it's just
taking
like the
money away
business
from
licenses.
us from them. That's how it started.
Well, no.
They're not going to give it back.
Honey, it's okay. They voted for a tax increase. We can afford this now.
That's why we did, because there's no way around it.
That's why we did it. Otherwise, we're going to ask you to pay it.
It's okay.
There's plenty of expenses to go around.
Well, it is, and I think I had that number somewhere. Is it 48,000 that you're anticipating this year?
I was just guessing around 40,000.
40.
Forest Acres had 40,000 in their budget, and they've already blown it.
We had how much in our budget originally?
6,000, I believe.
Yeah, but that's because they got Forest Acres all Richland County, though.
Yeah, theirs is all Richland.
Yeah, we can chase them over Lexington County.
Yeah, but $40,000 is blown before the fiscal year's up.
And we can do all our DUI enforcement and everything in Lexington County and forget doing it in Richland. And oh, well, anyway, it is something that we ain't got no choice unless local government fund gets funded, but it goes back to the same thing I was saying a while ago.
Yeah,
if it gets fully funded and then the money gets reimbursed, guess what? They're not going to stop charging us. They're not going to get rid of a tax either.
Right.
They're not.
I think
we're
we're
going
to have a conversation with them. We'll be able to.
It's a good thing we passed that
Well,
franchise.
the city of Columbia probably pays a whole lot more.
Yeah, I bet they do.
And they're not budging for them. So, you know, I do think if all the municipalities got together and went as a group and met with them, we might get better response. But one or two, I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of difference. But I think we could if we had all of them go down there together.
We could all go to county council's meeting. It's the same night as ours, so.
Yeah, or we could just get all the municipalities to get together and go talk to them and say, hey, we can't, but I think it'd be, I don't know.
In the meantime,
anyway.
we have to pay it, right?
Yeah, so any more discussion?
No. Nobody.
All in favor, even though we don't want to do it, to tell Bob to pay the stuff at $71 per day, do so with show of hands.
On one, I need to add one caveat to that. I want a true accounting of what this money is going to. I want to know.
From Richland County?
From Richland County?
Yeah,
We've
I'm
been
serious.
trying.
I
We've
want
been
to know.
trying to get that. They're being digging their heels in as far as how are they spending the $71 per day. We've
Right.
been trying to find out. They wouldn't tell us back when they was doing $43 a day.
Yeah.
Well,
And I've asked for where the county jail gets their revenue streams from.
Yeah, because I don't see how it costs $71 a day, because they're only paying $1 for food, so I know that for a fact.
Well-
I mean, I don't see that, but anyway.
If you read the...
Can we try to get that information from them?
I will.
I think it's already asked. And
Well,
like
we
I say,
can
I've
ask
sent
again.
something to the council members to ask to how that revenue stream, where it comes from, and they won't.
You got to remember,
Haven't.
4 years ago it was $0. Now it's
Yeah.
$71 a day. So I mean, something's caused the cost to go up. Whether it's the shortage of personnel paying overtime at time and a half, maybe they're losing money there. I don't know.
Well, it didn't start happening until that local government fund started getting
Right.
slashed year after year after year after year, and then I think they just finally had enough. So,
We'll never get that back.
did we vote?
Nope.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
oh.
yeah,
All in favor?
yeah.
All opposed?
Oh, we're all opposed.
No,
We're all
We're all
opposed.
opposed, but you got to do
You
it.
got to do it.
Well, Mark was opposed, didn't you?
I get it. Yeah, I'm opposed.
Okay. Next is the approval to increase the garbage fee $4 annually. This is the one that has to do with the new increase in the recycling charges for dumping recycling. Is there a motion for
I so
approval?
move.
And a second? I will second. Years or months ago, March, maybe before, they were charging nothing. Then it went to $25 a ton for any recycling that was dumped at Sunoco. They're having issues with getting rid of the recyclables, so it's not as profitable as it used to be. And now they're had to go to $25 a ton. Now they decided they can't do it without going to $50 a ton. And so it went up, and that account is that garbage fee. Everything that goes in comes out, and it's really a kind of a separate account, and it needs to kind of operate standalone. And I think it's $4 a year to go from 25 to 50. We've been actually eating the 25
Yeah,
for a while, but we just can't keep on.
with the garbage.
And
We got 5,000 houses.
and I think Julia
5,000 houses.
or he made the motion.
How many houses we got in Irmo?
About 5.
Approximately 5,100.
5,100.
At this time.
Do you want to?
I mean, I've got last month's bill from Sunoco. It was $1,000, and next month's bill is going to be, well, double that, $2,200.
Well, that's not enough then. That's not enough. I think it needs to be more than 4.
Well, I think he figured out 375 or something.
Yeah, we're banking it on only it being $24,000 a year, but we're already, 4 months into the year. And we only have about 40% of our people that are recycling.
Okay.
Rough estimate. So it's not every house. So that.
Okay, but if we got 5,100 houses times $4, that's $20,000.
That's correct.
So we're still 4,000 short.
That's correct.
Why are we gonna?
It's coming out of the garbage fund?
It is.
Okay, got
It
it.
is. I mean, we've been eating it and just trying to do it as a service, but I mean,
Part
we're
of
trying
it
to get
too, maybe.
some.
Try not to eat as much.
I won't say by the end of the year, by the end of next, or before we do next budget, they may go up again, because they said this is kind of a working in progress, trying to figure out what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how much.
So we're gonna see this. We might see this again next year. Then.
We could see it
Because this is because of
3,
China,
6
isn't
months
it?
from now. They might come back and say,
That's
oh,
correct. That's
50
part of
ain't
it.
enough.
That is it.
That's Sunoco's explanation. They can't sell the goods to China anymore.
I'm about sick of China.
Yeah.
Remember, this didn't come out of the tax bill until 2020.
Right.
Right.
Not next year's tax bills are already being
Yeah.
made.
Right.
So this won't get charged to the resident until
next year.
2020?
20.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Any more discussion?
Yeah, if it goes down, we're gonna take this $4 off, right?
Oh, really?
Yes,
We're going to decrease?
we're gonna decrease, yeah, but rather than nickel and diming these poor people to death,
Or we could just decrease the franchise fee?
no, that'll probably pay it.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
That's why we need it.
Got $100,000. We ought to be able to do something with it.
I know.
Let's vote.
Anyway.
Let's vote.
All in favor of the $4 annual increase to the garbage fee, do so with show of hands. And let me see.
All because of China.
The next is the approval to raise Judge Adams' salary from 25 to 29. Is there a motion for approval?
I so move.
I second.
Any discussion?
I don't think we need.
No, we need to let the poor judge go home because I know she's sick and tired of sitting here listening to us.
And this will actually be the 36 that we were paying Mickey. She gets the 29, and the rest goes to the county for benefits and retirement and all those other do tricks. All in favor then, do so with show of hands. And next is the accommodations tax to the DMO. We have a total of $13,300, which is the 30% money, and we have two DMOs that have asked for money. One is Lake Murray Country, one is Experience Columbia. I am going to make a motion to get us started, and we can amend it or change it or vote on it or whatever. But I'm going to make the motion to give $13,300 to Experience Columbia. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? And I made that motion, so I'll start there. As in the past, we've had, in my opinion, and I still don't understand, whatever dollar amount we have in the past given, at the end of the year, we get a report that shows how the money is allocated and how the money was spent. When the chamber was asking for it, we got a little thing from them that showed how the, say, $13,000 was broken down. We haven't been able to get the same thing from the other organization that shows how not their money, but the amount that we gave was spent. And I just can't support giving that until we get that information. This other place is the entity that the chamber was working on, or working with for years, because they do that all the time, and they were helping her know how to do it and get it started and everything else. So they're very familiar with how that money has been spent in the past and where it went and all the advertising and all the ways it was spent. Probably will kind of do the same thing. And they did say if we wanted to get more involved in it, we could. I don't know anything about that, and I don't want to get involved in it. I hope the rest of us doesn't. I think they ought to just give us a plan and say, here's, and then they spend it. At the end of the year, every year, they do have to give us a report how that money is spent. And I think we'll get a better job of that. But that's my 2 cents, and that's why I'm making that recommendation. And
yeah, I agree, Hardy. One of the things that we wanted from whoever we gave this money to is a detailed report of where it was being spent. And they said that they're going to do that, and I'm good with that.
Question. But are we going to give Lake Murray Country this amount that's under I?
That's a different item.
I know. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to.
I have a difference of opinion on that too, but I'll say that just for.
Okay.
And I can explain that when we get to that. But any discussion?
Yeah, I got a couple of things. What did the accommodations committee recommend?
On this $13,300, they don't recommend anything on that because that's the council's decision.
They didn't have any recommendation on it? They didn't have any, they didn't say anything?
They don't even talk about that. All they talk about is the 65% money.
Okay, so, and then you say that these people were asked for this money, so they both of these organizations put in applications?
You don't do an application on the 30% money, the DMO money. You just request it, and then council decides who and how and where. And
so there's no application given for that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so, and from looking at their handout, they're, like, for instance, they have a big board, in Charlotte here on page 6 of the handout they gave us. It's got St. Pat's in 5 points, a big billboard they got in the middle of Charlotte. The only event that we have in Irmo is the Ochre Strut. So shouldn't this be a Ochre Strut marketing thing for them to be advertising with CVB instead of us? I mean, we're talking about giving them money. That should come out of the Ochre Strut's budget, shouldn't it?
No, this $13,300 is money that comes from that tax accommodation.
No, but I'm saying the Ochre Strut is the only event that we have in the town of Irmo that would be drawing people from Charlotte or wherever. That should come out of Ochre Strut's budget, shouldn't it?
No, the Oak Strut has their own budget, and they can advertise wherever and however and all that good stuff that they want to.
So shouldn't they have a relationship with these people here instead of us having a relationship with Experience Columbia?
I don't know how to answer that question. All I know is $13,300. We have to decide which DMO gets it.
Okay,
that's
but
what the law requires us to do.
My point is this: the only DMO that is in this area is Lake Murray Country. I mean, that's the only one.
Well, the law doesn't require a local DMA, it just requires a DMO. And they do stuff for town of Lexington, they do stuff for
Who's
the
that?
city of Columbia.
This
Experience Columbia. They do stuff for Casey, and they were actually doing stuff for Irmo, because a lot of that stuff that the chamber did was working directly through and with them.
I don't see what they're doing for Irmo. I mean, the only thing we have is the Ochre Strut.
Well,
the only event that we have that would bring people to Irmo.
That's not what they do.
Is
It's
Ochre
just
Strut.
an example of what they do. If you look at the stuff that the Irmo Chamber did years ago, where they advertised in, I think it was North Augusta and different other towns and different other markets, that's the same thing they're going to do too, is promote the town. You know, we're not a tourist destination. We don't have a lake, a beach, a mountain.
Well, we do have a park.
Whatever.
We do have a park.
And so they don't have the stuff that they can advertise.
Well, I'm saying we do have a park. We do have access to it.
Yeah, they can do that, and they probably will do that.
I just don't see how we're going out to Columbia.
It's not
Experience Columbia. Experience Columbia is marketing Columbia.
No, they're not. They're regional marketing for the whole area, 4 counties, just like this one here.
Well, then, okay, then Lake Murray Country is regional marketing also.
Right.
So why are we giving it all to them and not splitting it up?
Well, like I said.
Why are you recommending that, I guess?
I can't find anything in their marketing that promotes our town. I can't.
In Lake Murray?
I can't find anything
Sure.
here that promotes our town.
Well, the Bistro on the Boulevard is in there.
That's not accommodations.
That's in that magazine that you're pointing out.
And I can't actually find anything that we got that shows how that money was spent that we gave them.
Well, I didn't ask for an accounting. If they asked for an accounting, I'm sure they'll
Well,
give
the
it to
state
you.
law requires that we get one and supposed to do that.
Well, did they submit one?
Good. Not for the 13,000 we gave.
That's my point. So we don't need to submit one for that. But why are you giving it all to one organization outside of the area?
I don't think there's a whole lot of money to be split up, and I think if you give it all to one, they're going to do a better job of promoting.
Well, I disagree, but that's fine. These people are right down the street from us, and they do more. We have more contact with them than they do in Columbia. I mean, Columbia is trying to get people to come to Columbia.
No,
they got the
they're
market.
actually marketing
They got the market down there
for
every week.
Regional marketing, just like them in a
Well, then,
four-county area.
okay, so we got
Casey, Lexington.
Casey and Lexington, West Columbia.
Okay, so what in Casey do you have in this book magazine they showed?
I don't see anything. Marketing plan for those. Those are just examples of stuff they do.
Okay, so they got a billboard that says "Come to Casey." I'm serious. I mean, I'm asking. I don't think they have a billboard that says "Come to Casey." They have a billboard that says "Come to Columbia."
Does
sure.
Lake Murray have one that says "Come to Casey"?
Lake Murray? I don't know. Let me see.
I don't know. You got that.
Let's see here. Yeah, here's one. I'm looking through it. Oh, you got Scott Benny's, the local food truck. You got Bistro on the Boulevard.
You got a billboard with Casey on it?
Huh?
You got a billboard with Casey on it?
No, I'm saying this is their magazine that they.
Yeah, I've looked at it.
I just pulled it up, and there's Bistro on the Boulevard and Scott Benny. Those are 2 local vendors. I'm saying there it is. I mean, you said there wasn't, but there it is. I don't think it's a one-sided give all thing. If you're going to give it, if we got 13,000, which is not that much, you know, you're going to say give it all to one organization and not the other. That's not fair. We want to build relationships. We don't want to burn bridges. That's my 2 cents.
Any more discussion? All in favor then of the approval to award the $13,300 to Experience Columbia, do so with show of hands. All opposed? Next is the approval to award and this is that 65% money, which is a total of $31,350. The recommendation that the tax advisory committee made was that $15,675 go to Lake Murray and $15,675 went to the Okra Strut. And I'm gonna make a motion too, and if anybody wants to amend it, they can. The budget that we approved for the Okra Strut earlier this year had $21,000 coming out of the tax accommodations to the Okra Strut. We approved that. We voted on that. I think we need to keep our word and give them $21,000. If you look at the accounting or the tax accommodations that was coming from Richland County, they asked for 10 and they got 5. So they were shorted 5. And either we'd have to take $5,000 out of their budget and give it to them out of general fund, or we'd have to tell them to spend $5,000 less. So my recommendation is going to be give $26,000 to the Okra Strut, and the remainder, I think it's $5,350, to the Lake Murray country. And I got a motion. We can second that and amend it, or we can die and somebody else can make another one, whatever.
Okay, what did we have in the budget for the Okra Strut for this?
$21,000, and that's what we approved and voted on.
Was 21.
Yeah, and then they had 10 that they asked Richland County hospitality tax, and they only got 5.
They give them 5.
So right now they got a $5,000 deficit in their budget that either we would have to tell them take $5,000 out, or we'd have to take $5,000 out of general fund and give it.
Right.
And I have spoke to the county about that. In fact, they're trying to pull up some information about where all their money goes and who gets it out in this area. Some may not know, but we did get $15,000 out of Richland County council member just months ago for last year's Okra Strut, because he had some surplus and he asked where to put it, and I told him where he needed to put it, and he did. Thank God. We may not never get that again because the surplus may be not there or whatever.
So wait a minute, you saying you got $15,000 extra for the Okra Strut
for last year's Okra Strut.
So how much profit, quote unquote profit, did y'all have last year? Okra Strut had last year?
Don't know.
You know?
I have all that numbers right offhand.
You know, Bob?
It's close to $31,000.
So they got $31,000 that they didn't use for the put on the Okra Strut that y'all call profit, which is not really profit.
Better than losing $30,000.
But they never lost it. They never lost it.
They did.
You got $31,000 you didn't use, and now you're talking about giving them another $20,000. Once you use that $30,000 y'all didn't use to make that shortfall of $5,000 you didn't get from the Richland County tax. I don't understand. Why are we even messing with that? This is not a profit center. The Okra Strut is not a profit center.
No, but at least it's being run in the black now instead of in the red like
it never was running in the black. It never was running in the red.
Yeah, it was.
In fact, you guys raised $100,000 to put the Okra Strut on, spend $90 and call it $10,000 profit.
We never
no, it's not.
raised $100,000. We raised $80 and spent $100.
No, you didn't. You just told me you got $30,000 you didn't spend last year.
I'm talking about the years before.
Last year, you got $30,000 you didn't spend. So you calling that quote unquote
Yeah,
profit?
they went out and worked hard and got sponsorships so that they'll have money to spend at the next one. And
Right.
stuff
So they
like
got the $30,000 to spend
U
now,
bands and stuff
and
like
you're
that
saying
that they didn't used to be able
take the
to.
take $15,000 away from the people that advertise outside of the area to bring people to the orchestra, cut them short to give it to the orchestra to make it for a quote unquote vaporware deficit that doesn't exist because they're just raising money to put the orchestra on and they may not use it, and that you call profit at the end of the day. That doesn't make any sense. And all you're doing is burning bridges again. You're burning bridges with people that we're trying to use to help us promote the
The
product.
orchestra, as you said, is the one event we got going on, and I'm gonna try to make it sure it's fully funded every year.
It is fully funded. They made They didn't spend $30,000 last year to put it on.
May I interject?
Yes.
As a new person on council, as far as everybody else, the Okra Strut, we asked the town administrator to give us a year-by-year amount of money that the Okra Strut spent versus what came in. And I wasn't a math major, I was a history major, but it ended up being $202,760 that the Okra Strut lost. In 2015, the town administrator took control of the Okra Strut, and I forget what it made, but it was the first year it, quote unquote, made money in 10 years. And since Larry Slaughter has taken over the Okra Strut, it has made an excess, made $20,000+ every year. Can't argue with the figures that the bookkeepers check every year and audit every year and say this is the way it was.
How many years was that? 2 years? 3 years?
3 years.
So they had $60,000 in the bank. They made $20,000 a year.
If they didn't spend it every year.
Well, they didn't. They said they made a profit. So I mean, where's the $60,000 at?
It's sitting in an account right now, actually in our general fund.
Okay, so then that's even more reason why they need to take anything away from Lake Murray.
So we won't have $202,000 hanging over our head that we lost.
You don't have that. You never had that.
I just
never
wanna-
had that.
We haven't seconded this.
Right. I mean, we're still.
I'm going to second it.
Okay, so you second the 26,000. And if you want to make an amendment, anybody wants to make an amendment.
I want to make an amendment. I want to amend it.
Well, whoa.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Didn't you make an amendment to change these
sorry.
figures?
You did.
Well,
You did.
I made a motion to approve 26,000. Not that. I didn't make a motion to approve the 1515.
Oh, okay.
My motion was to give 26,000 to the Okra Strut and 5,350.
So are we going to vote not to approve as it's written and then vote on what you propose?
No, because what I made the motion for
You made
was
the motion to
26,000.
adjust it.
And I'm going to make an amendment.
And 5,350
amend
to the thing.
I'd like to amend that. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'd like to amend that to give $31,350 to Lake Murray Country.
31,000.
And since the orchestra's got $60,000 in the bank, they don't need the money.
Is there a second?
No.
Yeah,
All right. Motion dies for a lack of second.
Now can we vote on yours?
Now we're back to the 26 at 1 and 5350, and it can be amended again if somebody wants to change it.
How much you got in the bank? How much you got in the bank? I just want to know.
Sure. No, we've made profit. We made excess funds. We used it 2 years ago or last year before the festival. We spent about $30,000 in infrastructure in the park,
Right.
electricity. You know, this year, $10,000 of our budget for this year is out of the excess funds from last year as well. And the intention of that is to have money in this budget this year to book for next year because we're catching a little behind. So we don't have all the money sitting there. We're using it and reinvesting it back in the strut is what's being done. So you're right. We're going to have, absent this, we'd have a hole in the budget of, what was that?
5,000.
Well, 5,000 from them, and depending on what you do, whatever less of the 21,000,
Yeah.
additional hole in the budget. So.
Yeah, and it's on this budget too. I just recognized it.
And I
10,000
wanna
came
say,
out of
too,
the reserve.
Well, yeah, I heard him mention about the papers. We just placed, one of our problems as we grow is we really felt like we were very underfunded in marketing. So we indeed, these same papers that they're talking about, it's Creative Loafing is the name of it in Charlotte. It's the Charleston City paper in Charleston. We just placed advertisements in both of those. If we were available to or eligible to request funding of that 30 or 35% money, we would have. I don't think we're eligible. I think we're rightly informed that we're not.
Right.
But yeah, we want to market outside of these areas, and we've got to really seriously increase our marketing budget in 2019 to be able to continue to get people out of the area.
But that's what you guys got a marketing budget for that, right?
We did, and I'm afraid as we grew this year, we kind of underfunded. We shot it low. Next year, it's going to, we're certainly going to increase.
And we can have Bob request that company spend, I'm going to say, a lot of that money on marketing the Oak Strut outside of that 50-mile radius.
That's what Lake Murray Country does.
Well, that's what the Experience does too. That's what that DMO does too.
But again, that's okay, y'all. Let's vote. I gotta make a motion. One more motion, please.
Okay.
This will be a quick one. No, I'm sorry. Can I make another motion then, please? This is a quick one. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just.
I want to make. My motion is to give Lake Murray Country $15,675 and give Oakstrut $15,675. And hopefully that the Lake Murray Country and Oakstrut will work together on advertising together to advertise outside of the area.
Is there a second? All right. Dies for lack of
50-50?
We owe them. We owe the Oakstrut $21,000.
Take care of our own.
Okay.
Jeez.
Any more discussion?
No.
Now we're back to the 26,550. Any more discussion? All in favor then of
Can't.
All in favor then of the 26,000 going to the Oakstrut Commission and 5,350 going to the Lake Murray Country, do so with show of hand. All opposed? Next is presentation by citizens.
One more.
Got one.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is the approval to submit the application for the Rural Infrastructure Grant in the amount of $500,000. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion. So moved.
Is there a second?
This is a grant.
I want to hear what he's talking about.
This is the, I gave you a sheet of paper, the Rural Infrastructure Grant.
Oh, I got the whole thing.
I don't know if, didn't you get it? I gave it to you.
No,
it's over there. The blue one. What this is a grant that will help us with, right now we're charging the citizen $8 a year for the testing of water quality, and we're also charging, I had that flooding problem over in Friars Gate. We had that study done. We spent $30,000 on it. I think it may have been before you guys.
No, it was in Old Friars Gate, the Charneski
Right.
property.
Was that before you?
No.
Okay, we did that study done. Anyway, here's how we can fix that flooding issues and stuff with this grant. We already got the engineering study done. We just have to apply for the grant. We already have the project already laid out. We just have to figure out a way to pay for it. Well, here's how we can pay for it. We've already spent the money on the engineering study.
Is this legal?
Is it legal? I don't.
Well, that's not our problem right now, though.
What do you mean it's not our problem? It's a flooding issue we have in Old Friars.
Yeah, but that's county, isn't it?
No, it's us.
No, it's county.
It's county.
The stormwater is the counties.
The flooding issue is us. We spent $30,000 for a study to figure out how to fix it.
And we got an estimate on a bunch of stuff to do,
Right.
which the county said they don't do improvements. All they do is maintenance. And this was
There you go.
improvements, and they won't pay for it.
There you go.
the DOT said it doesn't matter. Anything that we do to improve here is not going to help because everything from here to the river is not fixed. So it's still going to back up as soon as it hits. And everything that they put in there was an estimate. That's not an engineering study. That's a...
And that was 3 years ago.
Yeah. And they didn't tell us. They gave us some things that said you could do this, that, and the other, and one of them might be 100,000, one of them might be 300, and one of them might be 5.
Might be, but here's a way to pay for it.
Well,
and all you got to do is apply for it. Either we get it or we don't.
You got to apply for it. You got to do all the stuff right here to ever get to the point that we can apply for it. We
already have the study. We already got the study.
No, we got to have cost. We got to
We
have
got the
cost
cost.
of everything.
We had the cost estimates from 3 years ago.
They were estimates. They're not
Right.
cost. They don't want an estimate. They
There's
want
an
to know how much
extensive
everything-
study that has to be done.
Well, what does a cost estimate do? It tells you what you think it's going to cost, right?
That guy didn't give us a cost. He just said it could be approximately 100,000 or 175, and this one could be 2 or 250.
Well, we already did the study. We already spent the money for it. So I'm saying we can either apply for it or not. I'm not going to argue with y'all about it. Here's a chance to get $500,000, up to $500,000.
Well, as I recall, the problem was
We have flooding
pipe
issues.
size coming out of Old Friars Gate was bigger than the pipe that goes into the county pipe.
No, we had
And the county pipe was bigger than the pipe that goes into DOT.
Yeah, but we had drainage problems. The creeks were backed
That's
up.
what I'm talking about. That's the drainage problem.
I'm saying the creeks needed to be cleared out and stuff and all that. had to
And
be
that's
done
Richland
also.
County. We don't own the creeks.
And most of the creeks were on that side of the interstate to the river.
But the DOT just said until they fix their end, it's going to continue to back up because the next pipe was bigger and the next pipe was bigger. It's like sticking 12 straws in this bottle and 12 people start drinking it. It's gone, but it doesn't work the same way in reverse.
I think we ought to refer this to Bob.
Well, Bob
That's
has
what it
pretty much
says.
said, in order to apply for the application, we got to do all this stuff first, and we got to spend a lot of money. to
Another
get
engineering
estimates.
study
Then we
was
gotta-
3 years and won't.
And we're fixing something that belongs either to
That
DOT
belonged to
or
us.
to the
I
county.
understand.
Now, the county is charging us $71 a day to put people in their jail, and now we're going to go fix their ditches for them?
Well,
And DOT, we're going to fix
I know.
with our little
Richland
dollars
County
of
owns
tax
it.
money?
I understand. I
So
wish we could.
meantime, the people's houses flood out, and we still have backs up and creeks and stuff like that, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, and that's the honest goodness truth in a way. There's nothing. Unless we want to pay.
Yeah, there's something we can do about it. Here's a grant right
ditch
here.
clean from Irmo to Saluda River or to Broad River. There's nothing that's going to fix anything. Getting it outside of the town from a 40-inch pipe to a 24-inch pipe ain't going to make anything better. It's just going to flood somewhere else. That's all. And we're spending money to address something that the counties and the state should be addressing. So they want us to spend their tax dollars to fix it, but they ain't going to spend theirs or raise theirs.
Okay.
I mean, I wish there was something, but
I'm ready to
all
vote.
these places
Let's
that
vote.
get these
Let's vote.
grants,
Let's vote. Let's
a lot of them get 100% money because they're in a rural area and they're economically depressed. And they're going to tell us, you got to pay 25%, and you got to do all this work up front. We could spend $200,000, and I'll add this too.
We already
had
spent-
the
we already spent
opportunity
$30,000.
to apply for a $500,000 grant when we built the community park, and you said no.
That's because we already built the park.
No, we hadn't. We were doing that before.
Park is already done. This is something
No, it
we
wasn't.
need.
It wasn't even.
Okay,
wouldn't
we
even
need to go
settle.
on. Let's do something.
Yeah.
Vote, whatever.
All in favor then of an approval to submit an application, which, by the way, I got the application here. I can give it to you if you'd like to fill it out and bring it back sometime, and we'll vote on it.
Okay, Bob. Fill out
In
the
the amount of
application, bring it back.
$500,000, do so with show of hands. All opposed?
I wish it would work, Barry.
So you're opposed to submitting a grant application?
You
That
can't
makes a
submit
lot
a
of
grant
sense,
application.
Council.
Can't submit it without submitting money.
Yeah.
You don't submit a money for a grant.
You absolutely
Okay,
do.
genius. Thank you.
Yeah.
You absolutely
Right here, it
do.
says, what's the project title? And then it
Guys,
starts
let's
asking,
go on.
how much
Let's
is it
go
gonna
on.
cost?
Let's
Where's
go
the
on.
engineering? Where's the cost and everything else? And
We already
what's it
got
for?
an engineering
Next
study
on the
done.
agenda is presentation by citizens.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You can fill in pretty
Thank
good. Oh,
I've got an outline here with proof that you guys
Thank
are
you.
the most corrupt bunch of liars I've ever seen. So we're going to start
Wait,
with number one.
Thank you for coming up here. I appreciate it.
Except you, Barry, and Kathy. So, rules only apply if you're not the mayor's friend, is what we have learned tonight. I don't know how many times I've sat in a meeting and been told that you cannot address the audience and that the audience cannot get up and address anybody up here. But yet, if you're the mayor's friend, you can. You let the judge do it. Lake Murray Country couldn't do it. You let Glassmeyer do it. Then you allowed Larry Slaughter to do it because those are your friends. That's corruption. Now, secondly, the judge mentioned that the fines are usually reduced. That is also not completely true. One of the signers of the petition spent a night in jail because he could not afford to pay the full fine that was levied against him.
For parking, Brant? For what?
It was not for parking, but that is not the point. She was not asked about parking. She was asked about fines.
Okay.
So let's tell the truth when we're talking. Also, it's been said the cops can't run a tag that they must disturb us and that they must approach our visitors. So I'd like to know, when the car chase was happening over the stolen car, did they go up and knock and ask them if they stole the car, or did they run the tag? That's what I want to know. It's pretty much the same principle. I don't want to be disturbed ever because somebody is visiting me. I don't want my visitors harassed. And make no mistake about it, it is harassment. I'm about to tell you the true story of 508 Lord Howe Road as well. But on my street so far, 3 visitors have been harassed. My own grandmother, Miss Frankie's daughter, Ashley. There was actually no car there, so I'm not sure why anybody ever stopped at her house. So let's talk about Ashley. One more thing. The mayor talked about y'all banding together to go to Richland County because you don't like something they did. I want to know why you think they should listen to y'all when you don't listen to your own citizens who band together. But again, you won't speak to me because I'm not your friend. Okay, so Ashley at 508 Lord Howe Road. Let's discuss this. And I'm not sure why some people are telling untruths that I have a great deal of respect for. I'm sure it's because they're afraid they'll lose their job because the mayor has the votes for that too. But here's the truth about what happened. When Ashley bought the home on 508 Lord Howe Road, it already had a gravel little pathway, and it was put there by them for the visitors of their home to park in. Ashley didn't put a gravel parkway in, okay? That's truth number 1. Truth number 2, there was never a car on that gravel. She had the gravel already approved by Bob before Officer Montgomery, not Bobby Dale, left her an abatement notice on her door when no car was at her house at all, much less parked in the gravel. So there's some more truth for you. Okay? The last time we had a council meeting and I came up and asked what should we do when our visitors are there and was told we should message or email and let y'all know. So when this happened to Ashley, she posted on the Citizens of Irmo Facebook page, but she also messaged me because contrary to your belief, we are good neighbors in Friarsgate. She asked me what should she do, and I said you should call the town hall. I said, but let me get a hold of somebody for you too. She called. She was able to talk to Bobby Dale. Bobby Dale did not go to her house ever. She spoke to him on the cell phone. I also got in touch with Bobby Dale to let him know what was being done and what was being said about how we should all call in our visitors like we're in kindergarten. Bobby Dale called her and rectified the situation. The situation should have never happened. That is the point. Now, all 3 people on Lord Howe Road who have been harassed by Officer Montgomery. All 3 situations have been resolved by Bobby Dale. So I applaud Bobby Dale. I do not applaud the police department for putting somebody out who has not been to the academy, who does not understand this ordinance, and who has no people skills whatsoever. When he approached my grandmother, he banged on her window. She's a CWP carrier, and he's lucky he didn't get shot. I'm just going to be honest. She reached for her gun. Who comes up on your window? You going to tell me that's not harassment? All she did was pull in my yard. It is uncalled for. And don't sit up here and lie. Don't sit up here and lie. Bobby Dale never stepped foot in her yard. The only person that stepped foot in her yard is Barry Walker. You want to know why people don't trust y'all? Because you're liars. But you don't have anything to say to me because, again, I'm not your friend.
I'm Vicki Davis, once again, Capital City Lake Murray Country, and I'm sorry to take up your time. I know it's hot and we're all ready to go, but we started this with the Pledge of Allegiance and praying to God, and I'm appalled at what has happened here. I go to a lot of council meetings throughout the years, and I've never seen such as I have witnessed tonight, and I'm really offended to see the lies happen. We have an Irmo CPA that does our books and turns them in. Bob gets a report. You have everything documented that Capital City Lake Murray Country has every single year. And if that's incorrect, then I would love to know that. You have an accommodation committee for a reason. Why do you even have the committee when you do nothing that they say? Do you ask that hotelier who's putting heads in his beds? Who's bringing fishing tournaments right down the road and having people right here in your town spending money? It is Capital City Lake Murray Country.
Stop the cheapest, creepest crow.
Kevin Miller from 105 Wells Garden. Again, first of all, Chief, me and you've had dealings before, and I've got a great deal of respect for you. When I said what I said a while ago about, where was the police department at when somebody was trying to come in the house, I didn't mean nothing by it. What I meant by that was putting too much emphasis on code enforcement and less emphasis on criminals is just totally out of I just can't wrap my mind around that. Second of all, I think it was you said that if a police officer drives through by, you've got a visitor at your house, a police officer drives through by, make a note of it. If it's sitting in the grass, give it a couple of hours, come back through by. And Mr. Mayor, I believe it was you said, 12 o'clock, go up and knock on the door. Chief, word of advice. Don't knock on my door. That's not a wise idea. I've got family that live in North Carolina. My parents, my brother, my sister, my nieces, nephews, and I've got 2 children and grandkids that live in North Carolina that show up unannounced, pop in at any time. There may be a car sitting in my grass. If I've got a visitor at my house, the last person that I want to see to interrupt my visit with my family is a police officer wanting to know what the car is doing sitting in my grass. It's none of their business. It's got an out-of-state tag on it. It's none of their business. None of your business. It's my business. My house, my land. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I am Mike Ward. I reside at 118 Ashbourne Road, just around the corner. First off, thank you to the police department, the town council, mayor, and everybody that's here tonight. Despite the fact that large numbers of the town don't show up to these meetings, really isn't surprising, because if you go to other council meetings, there are not a lot of people that turn out for those meetings either. I do want to make a couple of points. Mayor, you were discussing potential ordinance 1825 with Mr. Walker. You were specifically asking, how will we know that the placard or the sticker is valid? You already have ordinance section 30-8, which defines the handicapped validation when we're parking vehicles. So I would suggest that maybe we refer back over to that if we're looking for some specification on that. That brings me to another point. We're talking about when we want to talk about the handicapped parking, we want to get very specific. Are they allowed to sit there for 5 minutes and then return to another parking spot? When does the 5 minutes start? Is it when it goes into park? When does it get shut off? So if we want to get specific, I agree. I think that if a town is going to put in ordinances that normally an HOA would put into place, there has to be some very specific rules. Otherwise, we get unrest as you have right now. With that, I've had several questions, and I've had a lot of time to study this, this ordinance. Temporary parking. Please explain. This is rhetorical, but please explain what temporary parking means. Part of that's what I've heard all night. Does that mean an overnight guest? May my guest spend the weekend and be parked in the side of my yard, not side of my yard, excuse me, side of my driveway? What defines the side of my house? Mayor, you said the front plane. What does that mean? Because that's not in the ordinance. It doesn't actually define, and I double-checked all of the town ordinances. I didn't find anywhere that specifically defines the side of the house or the front plane of the house. So if we're going to get specific, maybe the answer is not to repeal the ordinance, but I think the answer is to have some kind of maybe informative meetings, such as those that DOT does, where citizens are allowed to present, where we can talk about the specifics that make sense, the ones that don't make sense, and then y'all can come up here and you can have an educated argument and discussion, as council should, to make a decision that their constituents have to comply with. Third, I'm curious because the ordinance specifically states, it talks about parking on the grass, but then it says, parking on dirt areas in the front lawn area of a home is not allowed except for temporary use by visitors. And I'm the last person to want to call out my neighbor, but I have a neighbor 2 doors down, love him to death. He's a renter. He is renting a home that is not owned by him or anybody that lives in Irmo. I do not know the owner, but I specifically know the owner lives on the other side of Columbia. He has a vehicle parked on his side of his driveway, which is completely dead. It has some leaves on it from the leaves that fell down that the previous renters didn't clean up. I talked to him the other day about potentially signing the petition. I was curious what he thought about this ordinance. He said, "What ordinance?" He said, "I haven't gotten an abatement notice." So I'm just curious, and this is the first time that I'm really hearing the word discrimination come out. But I'm curious, on my street, I'm in the town of Irmo limits, and maybe there's a reason that this is, but he's never even been approached to be educated. Now, I think he moved in maybe 4 months ago, so maybe he missed the window of education. But I am curious, since his van's been parked there, and it's a disabled vehicle, like not handicapped. I mean, I don't think the thing even runs. I'm curious why he hasn't been approached and talked to about this town ordinance. Again, hopefully he doesn't retaliate for me bringing him out, but I'm curious. Couple more quick points. Killing the grass. The ordinance says that we don't want to park there because we don't want to kill the grass. There's a house on Chadford. I appreciate everything that the town does for us. I appreciate the police force. I do know it is one of our police officers. He is parking his vehicles sideways. I applaud him because that is really creative. I laughed when I first saw it, and then I saw the ordinance. I said, wait a minute, that's pretty creative. But here's my problem. He's killing the grass on the side of his driveway to get on the driveway. So are we worried about the appearance of the grass, the appearance of cars on the side of the driveway or the side of the home? What do we really care about? And with that, Mayor, I watched you when somebody, I don't know who it was, somebody came up here and they said that it was going to cost them $10,000 to add a pad. That is crazy. I think I talked to the guy that was going to pour that concrete, though, because he quoted me $6,500 to pour just a little pad with a little diagonal on it.
Whoa.
Okay, $6,500. So I understand, Mayor, you're coming back and saying there were options. We could put down pine straw with some borders for $200. But when does it become okay for the town government to say it's not okay for you to park on the side of your yard or on the side of your driveway because it doesn't look good, but I can't say, well, I can't afford $6,500. I just should put down pine straw. If you have the right to say what looks good and what doesn't look good, I should have the right to choose what looks good and does not look good on my own property. And I'm going to leave you with three things. You specifically said that there was some house we were discussing. They already put a parking pad in place to take care of this problem, but they still signed the petition. That should speak volumes. They've already spent the money to fix it so they're in compliance, but they're still willing to move forward and put their name on a piece of paper to stand for what they believe in. That really should be considered. We were talking about the county jail, Richland County Jail. They're upping their fees. They're forcing this onto us. That's bad news for the town. It's bad news for the people that have to pay money in the town to support this. And y'all had a lot of discussion up front where it was, well, did you pick up the phone and call them? Did you pick up the phone, sir, and call them? You've got a room full of people that are standing here, sitting here tonight. We pick up the phone and call. Make the request. We're here. We're fighting for what we believe in. Who says we don't agree with you? I don't want to pay more because it costs more to jail somebody. I agree with you, Mr. Walker. Let's chase them into Lexington County. I know that's unreasonable, but let's chase them into Lexington County. And finally, I have been very honored to serve on several boards, stand and sit in leadership positions. So I understand your side of this. I also understand the side from behind me right now. And I have to say that there are several times where I see the citizens stepping way out of line, but I also understand that they're upset. This is not my first council meeting. I've been to others. I've watched other council meetings. The level of unprofessionalism is beyond understandable. I understand elections are coming up, and everybody's going to be worried about their elections. They're worried about looking good, making the right decisions so that if they want to serve again, they can get on and serve again. But I challenge you. I challenge you to step up the professionalism, show us what mature leaders look like that are leading our town so that when people are stepping out of line, it's them stepping out of line and not you stepping out of line. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
George Glassmer, 100 Denbeck Road. First of all, I want to commend this gentleman that just spoke. I think he made some good points. Ms. Clarkson earlier has complained a number of times about council not listening to the citizens. I think you may well be listening, but just because she doesn't get the results she wants doesn't mean you're not listening. Parents listen to their children, but they probably don't give their children everything they want every time. That doesn't mean they didn't listen to them. Mr. Walker had some concerns, which I think may be very legitimate, about the existing parking ordinance and some concerns he has. I would propose and suggest to Mr. Walker that you sit down and put those concerns on paper in writing, consult with the town attorney to get them properly drafted, and place them on the agenda as a proposed amendment to the ordinance rather than just sit here and verbally complain about the ordinance or verbally point out what you see as its shortcomings. Put your concerns on paper as an amendment. Finally, I listened to Mr. Walker's discussion about the item J, the rural infrastructure grant, and he said words to the effect that the town could get up to $500,000. Again, you don't get it. It's a 3-to-1 match. If it's a 3-to-1 match, the most amount of money that the town could get if it applied for and received the $500,000 grant would be $375,000 because the town would have to pay the 25% match. It's not rocket science. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
No, it's the Siri person.
Hello, Susan Pope, 581 Cornerstone Circle. There's just so much disrespect. I'm just so over it. I just want this to be on the record. Brandy, I want you to find a buyer for my house ASAP. This is ridiculous. And until I move, please don't have a police approach my door. I have PTSD, and so do all of my friends. And to see a police is like a principal in high school. There should never be any interaction unless you're doing something wrong. So to be in your house and not feel comfortable, not feeling comfortable to have friends over, the idea that I need to let you know that I'm having visitors, that's asinine. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, I hope this get resolved, but this is horrible, because for you three people who made this decision, you don't understand the level of stress and misery that it has caused. It has truly invaded our joy in our homes.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I think we had no discussions. We do have an executive session for a update on a legal matter. Let me get this out. Is there a motion?
I so move.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor of going into an executive session for a legal matter, do so with show of hands. All opposed? All righty. Make sure we take off our mics or turn them off or whatever we call that.
Okay, I will. Yeah. Same you say hello to everybody too.
Lord have mercy. How many more hours you gonna be here, Renee? I gotta get some supper.
We are back out of executive session. Is there, and no votes were taken, is there a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion.
All in favor? Aye. Aye.